All right, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Nickbar,
Present.
Councilmember Ryan,
Here.
Councilmember Wellner.
Did you say Wellner?
Yes,
Here.
thank you. Vice Mayor Thier
Here.
and Mayor Fredericks.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on now to interviews for vacancies on the town boards and commissions. Is there a staff report?
No staff report for this item, Madam Mayor. You're welcome to just move through the interviews according to the schedule.
Say again, I'm sorry.
There's no staff report for this item. You're welcome to just move through the 4 interviews.
Okay, are the people who are being interviewed in the room or are they on Zoom?
Your first interview is Liz Fibush. She is here and she is ready.
Welcome, Liz.
Hi.
Come tell us a little about yourself.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for accommodating me as I was traveling abroad a few weeks ago, so I appreciate it. My name's Liz Fibush. I've lived in Tiburon since 2017. I have a 5.5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter in preschool. Community service wise, I'm a founding board member of the Young Professionals Council at the SF Marin Food Bank. So I've been involved with them for close to 10 years now, volunteering and helping with fundraising. I'm also recently got involved with the Foundation for Reed Schools and volunteering at Reed Elementary. A couple of years ago, I left my job. I was leading brand and product marketing at Shipt, which is a tech company owned by Target, to take care of my kids and get more involved in my community. So since then, I've been project managing with the town of Tiburon. So I've learned all the different codes and design reviews, remodeling my kitchen and bathroom, and helping out my neighbors. So I'm most interested in this Heritage and Arts Commission position to get more involved in my community. I also have an art history background. And so using that and getting more involved in my community and blending that with marketing and brand awareness and bringing that to the town of Tiburon.
Thank you, Liz. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Hi, thanks for being here and interviewing. Could you just tell us a little bit about your interest in heritage and arts?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I have a fine arts background. Many years ago, curated art galleries in New York City, but moved on to a marketing career that was much more lucrative. And so I am just personally passionate in art. I'm a studio artist by hobby. I've taken classes at the Pottery Studios in Mill Valley. I love attending the ICB open houses. Those are really well attended. I love the installation by Thomas Jackson last year. And so I'm just a big art enthusiast, and I think there's more we can do to help blend art with bringing more people into Tiburon businesses and building more community.
Would you like to elaborate on that? Because I'm sure everyone would like to hear at least one good idea.
Oh, yeah. So well, for one, I was just looking at social media and bringing more social media and broader presence to bringing more people into the events from beyond Tiburon, seeing a lot of things promoted locally, but how can we bring more people in from Novato or San Rafael, for example, the same way that Sausalito and Mill Valley do the same thing. Also, the Tiburon Wine Festival is always very well attended. So how can we kind of piggyback on that and bring more people through the downtown? And also the Cine Lounge has been very popular amongst people that I know as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions? I am seeing none. Thank you. Thank you for showing up and for applying.
All right. Thank you very much.
So we'll move on to our next interview, which is Tom Tanner.
Mr. Tanner is on Zoom. I'm bringing him in. He'll appear on the screen momentarily.
Hello.
Welcome, Tom, and thank you for being with us this evening and applying. Would you like to talk a little bit about your background and your interest?
Sure. My name is Tom Tanner. I have been a Tiburon resident for about a little over 8 years. And I have two master's degrees. One is in English and then one is in human resources management. I have spent most of my career in the talent acquisition or recruiting space, which deals a lot with diversity. Currently, I work for a company called Workday, which is a human capital management software firm. And I am the talent acquisition compliance lead. And what that means is companies are federal contractors. They have an affirmative action goal. And so that's their diversity goals that they meet. We have compliance and we're regulated. So there's kind of two components, which is the engagement part, DEI, the sort of fun, engaging outreach side. And then there's the what are you contracted to do with the government side? And so I manage more of the what do you do with the contract to government side, and then work with my partners that are more on the engagement side. And what drew me to it is I love working or living here. I feel like it's home, and I wanted to start to participate in some of the things that that make this beautiful place a little bit better.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Let me ask you one. I'm sure with your interest, you must have followed the work of the DITF, a little bit, Diversity Inclusion Task Force. What is your vision for connecting up your particular specialties and information with the ongoing work of the Diversity Inclusion Task Force?
Yeah, I saw the posting on social media, and I'm a little familiar with the task force. It sounds like there's a need to, I guess, make into practice diversity as opposed to sort of the let's be diverse and hold hands kind of view. Sorry, that's just sort of a way to put it. But I think there's a way that you're looking to add structure, standards, and sort of some process to your diversity efforts that in turn get you to what you would like to do, which is sort of a diverse background and a diverse attendance in sort of the world of Tiburon.
Yeah, thank you. Any further follow-ups from the commission? I'm seeing none. Thank you for the opportunity to chat with you, and thank you for your application.
Thank you.
So the next interviewee is Sam Stewart.
Mr. Stewart has not arrived yet. I might recommend we move on to oral communications while we wait.
All right, so
Wait a second.
Will
Is
staff-
there another interviewee that might be here? David Spencerville?
The fourth interview is not here yet either.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
can we have some directions from the staff on oral communication and open time?
Yes, thank you. If you're calling in on Zoom and would like to make a comment during this meeting, please use the raise hand feature of Zoom, which will indicate to me you would like to make a comment. You can find the raise hand button on your webinar controls bar on the bottom of your Zoom window or smartphone screen. If you're calling in using a phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand.
Is that it?
Yes,
All right. Do we have an interviewee anywhere? And if not, I'll just move to open time.
yes, I think we should move to open time while we wait.
All right. Would you like to give us some direction on open time?
We just did, so if you would like to,
Say again?
we just instructed the members of the public on Zoom how to make comments. If you'd like to begin.
Call open time?
Yes,
All right. So open time is the time to address the council on matters that are not on the agenda. And what I was hoping you would add to that piece of information is the amount of time, 3 minutes?
3 minutes, yes.
3 minutes. 3 minutes to address the council on anything that is not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the room who would like to do this? I'm seeing none. Anyone on Zoom?
Seeing none online.
All right, do we have an interviewee available yet?
Looks like he's still not here, ma'am.
Open time for something not on the agenda?
Don't think it's on the agenda. Is the item about pickleball here in the courts on the agenda for tonight? No.
Pickleball is not on the agenda. What is on the agenda is comments on the Parks and Open Space Master Plan, which includes a consideration of pickleball. And so does that make it on the agenda?
Yes, items regarding pickleball will be taken up when we talk about the master park plan.
So
Thank you. Anything else that people would like to address that's not on the agenda? Yes,
I have a question. Is it pickleball related to public space or is it pickleball related to private space?
if the Parks and Rec plan includes.
Yeah.
You know, pickleball, then,
I don't think that's
Okay,
an
I-
issue because we would have to issue conditional use permits and or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just see a lot of people standing back there. There are chairs. Please feel free to come in and sit down. We can also get more chairs if we need to, so please don't be shy. Come on in. We're happy to have you.
Wow, this is really exciting
Well,
and all about pickleball, really?
I can only see two.
I'll grab some more chairs. I'm not sure we're gonna have to be able to fit you all.
All right, for those of you who have just arrived, and who might be listening, I would like to once again explain what is going on the agenda with respect to recreation. What we're doing tonight is offering comments on the proposed master plan for recreation. There are no decisions being made, and the topic includes most of our recreational activities and proposed recreational activities. Any comments that the audience would like to make, but no decision is being made.
Mayor Fredericks,
Yes.
I had a question. Would you entertain, aside from the interviews that we have to do first, would you entertain moving the Parks and Rec Master Plan item up? Because I think most of the people here are going to speak on that. And that way they would be able to get home to their families or whatever they want to do after this. Would you entertain that, taking the D1 discussion item? Right after
I
the
understand the
consent.
ask. Let me just look at the agenda. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. Is there anyone else scheduled, any staff or consultants that would be? Like, are the consultants here now?
I will check on whether well, how about this? Your next interview is here. And while you're interviewing him, I'll check and see if the consultants are here yet.
All right, so where we are now is we're checking
Do we
to
need a
see if the presentation by the staff and the consultant can come early. And if it can, we'll certainly take you early. Thank you for the suggestion, Vice Mayor.
Sam is here.
Pardon?
Sam is now here. Sam Stewart. Interview.
But somebody is here.
Yes. Sam Stewart.
I have my notes. Thank you very much. I also read without moving my lips. Okay, we'll move. We'll move on now. Is David Block here? Is that who's
Next
here?
is Mr. Sam Stewart. He's here. He's on your screen.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Stewart. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can we all hear you? Yeah, can we up the volume a little bit, please? So we can hear the interviewee. Is that done? Mr. Block, would you please just say something so we can get your audio level? Mr. Stewart?
Mr. Stewart, yeah, sorry. Can you
I'm
hear me?
sorry.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, is that acceptable? Yeah, all right. Well, welcome and thank you for your application. Please tell us a little about yourself and your interest in applying to be a member of the Diversity Inclusion Task Force.
Thank you. Yeah, first off, thanks for taking the time to meet with me tonight. I apologize for not being in person there tonight, but I was a carpool driver for a few 6-year-old ballerinas earlier. So my name is Sam Stewart. I'm happy to be speaking with you tonight. I've lived here in Tiburon for 2 years now, and I've lived in the Bay Area just over 10 years. I'll say my wife and I and our daughter moved to Tiburon for the close-knit community, the amazing schools, and I came to California originally about 10 years ago for a research fellowship at Stanford. So what drew me to apply? A couple different things. So I have professional experience in public policy, both at a technology company at Google in San Francisco, as well as prior work for the U.S. Department of State. I have been drawn to service. So as you probably saw in my application, in addition to working for the State Department overseas and domestically, closer to home, I was a volunteer for the San Mateo County Arts Commissioner for about 8 years prior to moving to Marin. In that role, I helped to represent about 800,000 constituents in San Mateo County as an advisory capacity for the arts, as and then basically passing information to the Board of Supervisors to make larger decisions about the arts and culture in the county, and planning and art and grants distribution to people who applied both for micro grants as well as looking at newer buildings and figuring out where arts can be placed in those new construction buildings. In addition to that, I'll just say that related to DEI, I am a first-generation son of a first-generation immigrant. I understand what it's like to kind of have personal perspective around diversity. And just 2 more anecdotal reasons, I'll say, in my work as both a technologist and a former journalist, I was able to have the opportunity to travel to a little over 70 countries. And so I really found that to be one of the biggest educations of my life. And I will say also connected to the DEI role in this opportunity is my spouse had a 15-year career in law enforcement. So I do have some understanding, I'll say, of that community. So I'll stop there. Happy to answer any more questions, or if you want to dig into any more of those details, happy to do that.
Does the council have questions? Yes.
Thank you so much, Sam. I did have a question. If you're placed on the Diversity Inclusion Task Force, what would you like to do? What do you think needs to be done in Tiburon?
Yeah, I think, part of it is what I saw in the plan. It's the idea that I think the greatest way to help foster just understanding of different diverse cultures and perspectives is events. It's really trying to bring people together and give them kind of a sense of different perspectives. One of the things that I was tasked as doing when I was overseas for the State Department was being kind of a cultural liaison and hosting large-scale events, and just being able to kind of bring people together in person now that we can do that, and have people, taste what a different culture tastes like, and see dances, hear music, interact with other people. I think that's one thing that would really help just educate people around the diversity that is here in Tiburon, and also the other local communities and how they can kind of bring some of that color into our world here.
Any further questions? I think that covers what is my favorite question, as well as what you told us. Thank you so much for applying. And we will deal with this appointment at a later date because the applications, I believe, are still open. Is that right, Lee?
Correct. Applications are open until April 5th.
Thank you, Sam.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Where are we on the next interviewee?
Next is Mr. David Block. I'm expecting him online. And it looks like he is also not here yet. I'm happy to give him a call and let him know we're ready for him a little early. If you'd like me to do that, sure.
s- can we just move to the consent calendar?
Sure, I think that makes good sense.
We're trying to get to the item for which people have showed up, but we're waiting for the next interviewee first. So would anyone in the public like to take anything off the consent calendar? I'm seeing none. Would anyone on the council like to take anything off the consent calendar? I'm seeing none.
And I'm seeing none online, Madam Mayor.
And thank you very much for that. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. You know, what is the problem? Mr. Block expected to be here later?
We were not expecting him until 7 p.m. So we're about 5 minutes ahead of schedule.
All right, so that's not enough time to take on what you all are waiting for. So why don't we move to the first action item, which is appointments to boards and commissions, and consider appointments to Heritage and Arts.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Tonight, you're considering 3 appointments to the Heritage and Arts Commission. The terms of incumbents Arjun Gupta, Trish Farron, and Nora Noguez expired at the end of February. Per council policy, you have also interviewed 2 new applicants. You interviewed Teresa Coleman at your last meeting, and then you interviewed Liz Feibush tonight. So tonight, we're asking you to consider making 3 appointments to new 4-year terms. Thank you.
And we have the incumbents all applying to re-up their terms, do we?
Yes, they've all indicated they'd like to be reappointed.
May I have a motion for one or all of the openings on Heritage and Arts?
Let's do
please?
public comment first.
Oh, public comment. Is there any public comment on an appointment to Heritage and Arts? All the incumbents have applied, and we actually have 3 great new applicants. Yes, ma'am. It's hard not to like her. Oh,
So I wanted to say something first before we make the motion. I too was very impressed with Liz. I was also impressed with Teresa. And we always say on the town council that we have an embarrassment of riches. And in this case, we have 3 incumbents, so 3 people that have already been serving in the capacity, Trish Farron, Arjun Gupta, and Nora Noguez. And I am going to make a motion that we reappoint our incumbents, but I really want the other 2 candidates to know that you can get involved. And a lot of these individuals got on the Heritage and Arts Commission by being involved, and it's no reflection on you and the fact that you're fabulous. So please don't leave us. Please stay involved. And that is my motion.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We move now to Diversity Inclusion Vice Chair. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight, you are considering appointing a vice chair to the Diversity Inclusion Task Force. Per the bylaws and governing resolution of the DITF, on an annual basis, the council should appoint a chair and a vice chair to the task force. At your last meeting, you appointed Vice Mayor Thier as chair. And at that same meeting, you indicated you'd like to hear from the task force at-large members if any of them would be interested in serving as vice chair. We talked about this last week at the DITF meeting, and there's currently only 4 at-large members of the DITF, but all of them indicated that they would like to be considered for vice chair tonight.
And I appreciate that. I guess the DITF felt this was a very uncomfortable recommendation to make, which is normally what we expect from them because there are so many good candidates. Seeing that, I would like to nominate Tina Pikeday. Both Tina and Karen have a broad perspective of DITF work, and that broad perspective is what's really important. I thought Tina was especially helpful in organizing the focus of discussions and agendas and a work plan that's consistent with the vision and for the DITF that Karen helped the DITF articulate. They're both great members. It's a hard choice, but I would nominate Tina Pikeday as vice president and look for a second. And I'm getting pinched because even though I read without moving my lips, I forgot to ask for public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? I am seeing none. Is there any online?
Seeing none.
So I bring it back to the council for a second.
I would second it. I think she's great.
Okay,
So once again, we have this embarrassment of riches, right? So our diversity inclusion task force for all of you here actually has an opening. Anyone can apply to be on it. We have the group of community members and each one wants to serve as vice chair. I was wondering, is there a way that we could have folks come and talk to us versus have just a plain motion? Because I would really like each one to come and have an opportunity just to tell the council.
I'm
why
sorry,
they'd
but
like to
there's a
be vice
motion on the floor. Can we vote on it?
Right now, there's discussion on the motion. There was a first and a second and discussion on the motion.
Right.
Is it
right.
okay?
So I'm discussing what's on the floor, and the reason why is because, you know, we have a motion, but we haven't heard from anybody really why they want to do it. And it would be good to have them come before us, I think.
May I just make a comment that this item was brought to the DITF as a discussion item. At that time, there is no particular discussion. That was the time to have it. I think it's more appropriate for us to go ahead and make a decision so the DITF can get on with their work. Each of the people who said they were interested had an opportunity to talk and they did not.
I mean, I also just, I don't think we should overthink it. I think I agree that they're all great.
Yeah.
And this is just for a vice chair role, which, so in this case, the chair of that commission has to be a council member. So the vice chair's only role other than helping to set the agendas is to cover the meetings when the chair can't be there. So, but they can't roll into the chair if the chair resigns. So I just feel like if we're gonna drag it out, we're just kind of overthinking it, and they'd all be great. That's, so I would just prefer to move on. I think Tina's fantastic. I think they're all fantastic, but
They are.
I'm completely content going with Ms. Shopik.
Do we need to take a vote on whether we want to bring this back after?
Well, right now, there's a motion on the floor. You can vote on that motion, and if it fails, you can decide what to do next.
All right, so I'll call for a vote on the motion to nominate Tina Pikeday as vice chair. And should that be a voice vote since we're having such a vigorous discussion?
Happy to call a roll call. if you'd
Roll
like.
call?
Councilmember Nick Farr,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Wellner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thier,
Yes.
and Mayor Fredericks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on now. Do we have David Block with us?
Mr. Block is here in person.
I get the chance to chair?
You get the hot seat.
Let's go. Well, hello. I was told that the meeting started at 7, or my interview was starting at 7. And here I am at 6:59. Hi.
Hello, David, and thank you for applying. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself, about your interest in being appointed to the DITF, and maybe even a little about what you see your role on the DITF as being?
Thank you for the question. A little about myself. I'm not that interesting. I was born and raised here. I am a Tiburon native, and I'm raising my kids here in the town now. I am a partner, shareholder at a very large international law firm. I come to the committee with a somewhat different perspective than my guests, the other applicants have. And indeed, it tells you something that apparently the existing applicants weren't good enough because we've decided to extend out the application period to April. I come here not to praise the concept, but to bury it. I have been all over the world. I've been to all 7 continents, 47 states, 5 Canadian provinces, 82 countries. And as I look at Tiburon, I don't feel as though we have a terrible problem when it comes to diversity. And I wonder at what point we are going to decide to end this project of having a diversity committee, a diversity task force. Is this going to be a permanent agenda item? Are we really going to need to continue to have 5 people who seem to be dropping every couple of months, attending the diversity committee, the diversity event? I look upon all of this and I wonder what we're doing. And so I realize that I'm not going to be selected for this position. I'm calling it a guess. But at the same time, I thought, hey, I live here. I am a voter here. I have been here for longer than almost. Alice and I we might be able to arm wrestle for it, but the 4 of you, I've definitely got beat. What are we doing here? At what point does this end? We decided to have a diversity committee, diversity task force, in the wake of the controversy about the Yema store. I have my opinions about that. I won't share them with you now unless you ask. If you do, I will tell you all about those opinions. But at some point, this has to end. Or we've just decided this is a permanent sinecure. We've decided that we at Tiburon will always have 5 people who are selected for the purpose of talking about diversity in the way that some people want to. And consider how we've described this position, right? Where is it here? It's this is the town council application form where we talk about having to talk about the impact of, what is it? The structural race, our awareness of the systemic racism that we here in Tiburon face. I've been here all my life. You know, people have bad thoughts and bad opinions, and that's terrible. We do not need a 10-person commission to talk about it for the rest of our natural lives. So I am here to suggest that perhaps the committee has outlived its purpose, the task force, whatever it is. And to the extent that there are any people on the council who will be appointing people for this particular task who agree, then maybe what we should do for this open slot is to start talking about a way to end this process, to figure out a nice glide path to terminate the Tiburon Diversity Task Force. To the extent that there are things we want to continue as a town to do, fine. I am all in favor of parties. I am all in favor of events that celebrate whatever interesting heritage members of the town of Tiburon may have. But the idea that we have to have this permanent standing committee on race is nonsense. And it is time to end it. And I would be very pleased at the opportunity to, in a responsible and respectful way, end it. And if we're not going to end it with me, which we're probably not, spoiler alert, the 5 of you need to think about when this ends, because otherwise it is a permanent architecture where we're always talking about race. And that's inappropriate. It's wrong. We have to stop.
So,
Let me just ask you one short question.
Okay.
Have you read the strategic plan, or Have you read the strategic plan or the work plan of the Diversity Inclusion Task Force?
I have.
And you see from that a never ending?
I don't see a terminal point. I don't see a point at which we say we're turning this off.
Okay, please.
Do you?
Yeah, so I have a question and it's,
I have an answer. It's gonna be good.
yeah, maybe you do. But,
Might not
you
agree
know,
with you.
wait,
but I'll
wait,
have an answer for you.
let me speak, please. All right, I was polite and listened to you. So the idea that talking about race has to end is something that I don't agree with. I don't think we have diversity yet. And I would also question why you would want to be on a task force that you don't believe in and that you want to end. So I just wanted, you know, whatever your views are on this task force, you're welcome to express them as you have. But I just wanted kind of to make a public statement that I really disagree with them. And I don't believe that we have true diversity here in Tiburon. And I believe in the task force's work. So, you know, I would say maybe there's another task force you're interested in that you believe in, because I don't know why you would want to serve on a task force you don't believe in and want to end.
Haven't you answered your own question? This is the only time that you've met someone interested in the diversity task force that disagrees with you.
No,
So
I've met
that's
several-
diversity of opinion, diversity of thought, not a question of how tan you are, but rather whether you actually have diverse or the same opinions. If you want a diversity task force, perhaps you should pursue diversity of opinion, not diversity of ethnicity. And that's really all you're talking about here with the diversity committee, isn't it?
We're not gonna agree. I just wanted to make that public statement. So I think if
Thank
other
you. Wasn't the
people have
question.
questions, they.
I think we should wrap
Let-
this
let-
up.
let- let me
This isn't
just-
really an interview.
Let me just say something.
Sure.
I think what makes town process, government process vigorous is contrarian opinions, but not opinions that say, let's blow up the process. I respect your particular point of view, but I wish you could articulate a little better how you think this is going to be helpful to this community who wants to do something to make sure they can identify and cure any instances of racism that come into our community processes, government processes.
I'm not sure that's a question. I'm glad to respond, or you can just, as Vice Mayor Thier did, say that was my statement. I'm not quite sure.
Well,
if that's-
I was just hoping you'd have more to say than I want to blow it up.
I'm not sure
You're a
that.
smart guy,
Opinions differ.
I think
maybe.
I would like to thank Mr. Block for exercising his right as a resident of Tiburon and submitting his application. And thank you very much for your time.
Any further comments? I see none. Thank you.
For applause, that was fine.
All right, let me see if I can figure out where we are. We've finished with the account, the consent calendar and the first action item and the second action item, and we're now moving on to the transportation and infrastructure. No, actually, we're going to skip now, aren't we?
This will be a very quick item, I believe. You're welcome to switch things around, but this will be a very fast.
Is it fast, just appointing a council member? Well, so it's up to the council to make it fast. And I'm looking at us. Staff.
I think we
report,
should
please.
jump ahead to
I
the
think we should
parks.
jump ahead
Okay,
to the
fine.
parts. Yeah,
Okay.
people are here for that.
All right. So we move now to discussion items. Again, this is not a decision-making process we're offering tonight. We're just receiving an update report by WRT. We'll open public comment first, really before the report.
No,
That's a question.
I would do it after, so they.
So they know what the update is. That makes sense to me. All right, so we will have the report first, then we'll take public comment.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, esteemed council members. This evening, we will provide an update on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Here with us this evening, we have Peter Wench and Olivia Grensbach from WRT. And also from our post subcommittee, we have Vice Chair Chuck Hornbrook and Commissioner Angela McInerney, who have helped guide this plan with post-commission involvement. This evening, we're just going to provide you, WRT is going to provide you with draft recommendations. These are recommendations that they have heard from the residents throughout all of their engagement events, especially last month, we held a lot of workshops. And with that, they put together a really nice slide for town council to look at, review, and provide feedback to WRT and staff moving forward for our goal to create Tiburon's first Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And with that being said, we'll move on to Peter Wench that will start the presentation.
I do have a question. Are these actual recommendations or a summary based on the survey responses?
So these are just draft recommendations based on survey, community outreach, and workshops. So this right here is just what WRT has put together based on all of their public engagement and condensed it into one really good diagram and old rail trail master plan workspace for town council to look at and provide comment.
I have a question, can I?
Yeah.
Were there other inputs that led into these recommendations besides public comment at the pop-ups and the subcommittee meetings that sort of led to the recommendations that we're going to see today?
So based on the recommendations you're going to see today, these were based on pop-up events, community engagement. We had numerous types of scenarios and diagrams out there for the public to look at. And based on comments that we received on all of the different diagrams that we had out there, WRT put together the most comprehensive one that touched pretty much what everyone in here, all residents were looking for. And based on our post subcommittee and our town council subcommittee meetings that we had.
I have a further question before we
Right.
start. So I think when we first talked about this process, we talked about getting a lot of public input, and I understand that that's what the pop-ups and the subcommittee meetings are for. One thing that we specifically talked about was surveys. Were any surveys mailed out to the general population?
Yes, we mailed out a survey to every household in Tiburon.
Okay, and what kind of feedback did we get? What percentage response? And
I believe it was a little over 280, I believe it was, Peter.
I don't remember the exact,
Yeah.
is this on? I don't remember the exact number of responses, but it was well over the statistical threshold and.
okay, good. And those responses were taken into consideration in drafting this plan.
Yes.
Okay.
I had another question. Has the Committee on Parks, Open Space and Trails and the commission itself seen the presentation you're making tonight?
No, this is the first time they're seeing this presentation, and based on input we received from town council this evening, we will present a draft also to the post commission in May.
Okay, and then one follow-up question. How did you there's a lot of different ideas with respect to what goes where, and how did the consultant, how did you decide on, where you put something where when the public did not agree?
Yeah, I guess I want to just reiterate that these are preliminary recommendations that we are doing our best to try to synthesize a lot of different points of view, a lot of community input, a lot of exciting and passionate views on one side and another. And we're looking for your input. There's nothing cooked about it. This is a step along the process.
And also to reiterate on what Mr. Wench said, that this right here, what you see on these plans here isn't set in concrete. Things can be moved around. It just gives you a general idea of where they can go. So if you see a sand volleyball court south of Knoll, it'll fit in that area, but it can be moved. And once we get to the next stage after this plan's accepted and approved and adopted, once we get to the actual CIP stage, when we're ready to start construction and program these projects into our CIP, at that point, we can then vent additional venting on where they can go actually within that space.
So are there any other questions? Questions?
On the process, after tonight, what is the process?
So after tonight, WRT will collect or listen to all of your comments and suggestions and feedback. Take that back, take all of those back and refine what you see here as far as the plans moving forward. Then we do have a presentation to the post commission in May with a final draft. With that final draft, we will take any comments they have and come back to town council with a final Parks Master Plan for you to review, plus the comments and suggestions that post commission will make. And then we'll let the town council decide what they would like to do moving forward from that final draft plan.
Are there any further comments, questions?
As part of the committee, if I may, just, this is a continuum along the process. This is no final pieces on this, and I appreciate how David has set all those pieces up. Specifically, Councilmember Thier or Vice Chair Thier on page 4, I think is actually what the schedule is of everything that's going forward. So I just want to, a lot of what your questions here, I think Peter's going to touch on.
No, I actually saw the schedule on page 4, and after this, it looks like it goes to post, and then it comes back to the council one time. So I was asking if there's anything else between those steps.
All right.
So I did see the
Okay, great.
chart. I read the
Awesome.
whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think, again, the goal of this meeting is to directionally help the consultants determine what the flavor of all these pieces are and to get feedback from you all. Because we haven't, the last time we did this was December, right? November, when the consultants gave you a summary of all these pieces that we've gone to, including the survey and all those other pieces.
So Vice Mayor Thier, do you have any further questions?
Oh, I'll have more later, but I just.
I think we all will. Perhaps it's a good time to get on with.
I have one other question. So when we originally did, when I think Angela and I were on the post subcommittee originally, and when we put together the RFP, there were a couple of key things within that RFP around having an action plan, and then having costs for maintenance, a maintenance plan, as well as having things that we can put into our capital improvement plan in terms of next steps and taking the recommendations and making them actionable. I don't expect those to be here today, but I just wanted to confirm that the items that we had listed in the RFP will be part of the final presentation as we see it at the end.
You're absolutely correct. Great, Councilman.
All right, are we ready to move to the presentation? Please.
Okay. Thank you, members of council and the committee that is working so closely with us on this, and David, and most of all to the community, which is coming out in such good numbers tonight. Just grateful for all of the attention on this project, which deserves it, and which we hope will be worthy of the setting in this community for the 15 or 20 years ahead that we hope this plan will serve. So we're going to do just a quick overview of the Parks Master Plan and the schedule, which council has been already diving into. And then we'll look at initially the recommendations that we have been testing with the community and which we have tried to refine for this presentation. That apply citywide across Tiburon to both parks and open spaces, as well as the recreation programming. Then we're going to look at specific ideas for Richardson Bay Lineal Park, for downtown, for the small neighborhood parks, and for open spaces and trails. And then I'm sure we'll have a great discussion. So with that, The project schedule, you see a green arrow that says we are here, and it's relatively near the end of this line, which means that we've been doing a lot of work. The pink circles below the line are indicating meetings with the post subcommittee, meetings in the community, pop-up events, a statistically valid survey that was conducted in July, public workshops last summer, a walking tour in September, and then most recently, public workshops that were conducted last month, both here in this room and virtually. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time summarizing what we heard at those meetings. So this round 2 of engagement, and I guess I want to say I'm focusing on this round 2 tonight because we did present at another one of these check-ins last November. We presented what we had heard in the first round of engagement, which included a lot of other engagement activities and generally at a somewhat higher level, more about vision, but also the statistically valid survey, which dove into a lot of detail about specific recreation priorities. So we're not going to report in detail on those findings tonight, but if you're curious, we can try to respond to questions about it. I do have that presentation with me. What we've done most recently is come to the community with some specific preliminary recommendations, like I said, that apply citywide, but also to specific sites. And these are listed here. We had an in-person workshop on February 6th. About 25 folks came. And then a series of 3 virtual workshops, which focused on, I'm sorry, there were, 3 virtual workshops, which focused on subsets of the park system. First, Richardson Bay Linear Park in downtown, and then a workshop on smaller parks, as well as open spaces and trails. And because there was so much interest in that one, we repeated it. So we did that one again. We also received comments through the website and on email. Some of you may have responded to us that way, and we've been tracking all of those comments as well and trying to incorporate those as well. So the first thing I want to get into is these recommendations that could apply townwide. And I'm showing right here just examples of what those boards look like. The way we were receiving feedback, we made preliminary policy statements and we asked people to indicate how important those were, whether those were a priority to them. And what I'm showing here in black writing, those are the original ideas that we presented to people at the workshops. And in blue, those are some changes that we're recommending based on the feedback that we got in this last set of engagement. So this is sort of a way to, I think, capture both what we heard and the changed policy recommendations in one slide. So please bear with me, there's a lot of words, but we're making recommendations in a few different, I think 4 categories. And the first category is park experience. So this first recommendation is a new one, but it shouldn't be because it's something we've been hearing all along. It's just one of those things that it almost seemed so clear and so certain that it was what's the expression? You're missing the forest for the trees or something, but there it is. Maintain the open and peaceful quality of Tiburon's parks and open spaces, connecting residents and visitors with the physical setting and environment. And we heard that at the workshop that was a huge priority, and we wanted to make sure that's right there. Create clear and welcoming park entrances and orientation. Strategically add amenities to support a more comfortable park and open space experience. And here we're adding some additional language that gets to some of the things that we heard were priorities for people. And that included restrooms at the larger play areas, shaded gathering spaces, trailhead signage, seating, and other amenities. Convene organizations that manage Tiburon events to work together and produce great events for all. This has been a theme of our feedback, I think, throughout this process, that the community is interested in having more opportunities to gather and celebrate. And then the last bullet here is create space for music and other performances and establish a public art program with clear review roles, locations, and parameters. The next category is recreation, which is a big one, obviously, for our Parks and Recreation system. And so again, in blue are things that have been adjusted based on the most recent round of engagement. So focus on improving recreational opportunities for teens and seniors. This has been a theme that we've heard. Increase community awareness of and programming at the ranch, which is, a critical partner here. They provide the recreational programming for this peninsula, for this community. And so while they're not specifically going to adopt this plan, they've been thoroughly engaged in the process, and I think that they're interested in learning as much as they can and being aligned. Add new and enhance existing playgrounds. And this, we've added a little bit more specificity here, including replacing equipment, providing inclusive, nature-based, and tactile play experiences. These are things that we heard from the community. Strategically develop recreation amenities that meet community needs. These include pickleball, tennis, and potentially an indoor gym. The next one is a newly added recommendation, something we definitely heard, which was to create spaces and opportunities for organized adult sports and unprogrammed play. And then we have explore the feasibility of developing a small outdoor public pool. In this case, you're seeing some ... The policy, in some cases, the language goes on a little bit. In this case, we also want to continue to explore opportunities to improve Tiburon residents' access to other neighboring pools. Obviously, building a pool is a pretty serious thing to do, costs money. So we also want to exhaust other opportunities to increase access to swimming. But the reason this policy is there is that a swimming pool or access to a pool was one of the high priority needs that came out of that community survey. Work with Belvedere to create good water access from Beach Road and work with the county to improve water access at Paradise Beach Park. Kayak and small craft access to the water was totally at the top of the list for our survey and has come up again and again. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this and it's been discussed for a long time. It's challenging. The Tiburon, as much waterfront as we have, it's not easy waterfront for a kayak SUP launch. So that's why this policy recommendation is leaning into working with Belvedere, working with the county, because it could be that some of the better opportunities are there. Establish and enhance key trail connections, and especially linking downtown with Tiburon Ridge and linking segments of the Tiburon Ridge Trail. And then finally, last but not least, consider neighbors in the planning of any recreation facilities to make sure that all the concerns are addressed. The third category, did I miss one? The third category is access and visibility. Thank you all for bearing with us. There's a lot here, a lot of material. Embed accessibility and inclusivity in all improvements and changes. When adding a large destination play areas, use all-inclusive design. This was something we heard a lot in our engagement most recently, so we're adding it there. Make improvements to the old rail trail to optimize safety for all users. This is something that has been echoed throughout the process, that anxiety for some about using that trail because it doesn't always feel safe. Improve safe access across Tiburon Boulevard to Richardson Bay Lineal Park. And then here we have a couple of ones that we're recommending to add. One would be to create a cohesive signage and wayfinding program for Tiburon's parks. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I was just curious about the color coding of the bullet points. Did they link, like, are all the blue ones like downtown and the black ones Richardson Bay Lineal Park, or is there a method to the?
Yeah, I think you were out when Peter touched.
I did introduce that. So the blue is where we have introduced these as new ideas that weren't tested with the community in that stage of the workshops, but we've added them because of the response that we got from the community, because of the kind of comments that we received.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, signage and wayfinding program. We heard about that, that lack of consistent signage and identity for the parks. Create a comprehensive map, sorry about that, of parks, open spaces, and trails. This would be an online map, an online resource for people. And then enhance the open space network. And I can't read that, so. But it's enhance access, thank you. It's about enhancing access to the open space network. We've got a beautiful, beautiful open space system here, but it's not very well linked to places to park or even to bike routes. So there's a real opportunity to better link the trail system and the open spaces to access points. And then fourth is around the environment. And we want to really raise up the reality that parks and open space are, potentially important infrastructure, natural infrastructure for the community as we absorb and respond to a changing climate, and heat and stormwater are things that parks have a role in helping the community thrive. So one opportunity that we see is to create rain gardens with paths so that linear stormwater management facilities can be also trails. And real opportunity where there's been flooding downtown to create a trail system as part of the response.
Question,
Yeah.
please. I may be the only one in the room, but what is a rain garden?
Oh, good question. That's a jargony word. What it is another jargony word is a bioswale, but it's a place for stormwater to be slowed. And so that it isn't rushing during a storm event, rushing all at once into a limited storm drainage system, and is also cleaned along the way.
So it's drainage?
It's drainage. Thank you. Drainage. It's drainage, but it's
you
not
love
just,
government?
it's also an amenity, I guess is the point.
Beautiful drainage.
It's beautiful drainage.
Prettier drainage.
It's pretty drainage. All right, and so there's another bit about stormwater infiltration into design of future changes to the park system, incorporating adaptation into park design. We're already seeing that happen with the demonstration project at Greenwood Beach that some of you might be aware of, which is a great start. And there may be more opportunities to use use nature-based adaptation along our park shorelines. And there's finally a policy about exploring the idea of a community garden that would require an operator and to work out the logistics of maintenance. I'm going to shift into some site-specific ideas. Richardson Bay Lineal Park, starting with what we've heard. So we looked at this site. This is everything from Blackie's Pasture down to the south of the Knoll, that whole sequence of public open space along Richardson Bay. So what we've heard from the community about this site is that it's really important to preserve the open, inviting quality of it. There was strong support for nature-based play, all-inclusive play, and play areas for younger and older kids, picnic tables with shade structure. There was support for a pool or a splash pad, and a lot of support for pickleball, especially in comments that we received after the workshop. I think I found the audience. We also heard a lot of comments about, the relationship between things at that site. So one of the concepts that we showed actually would have brought a roadway into the park to serve a new facility, in that case, an outdoor pool gym complex. That caused a lot of concern. There wasn't, I think, a lot of support for bringing vehicular access into the park. There was concern about when we add new amenities to that park, it's going to increase parking demand. Already parking is challenging there when there's a game happening. And so what about parking? We heard about wanting activities that are going to require a lot of people to drive, or maybe are more senior oriented to be near parking. We heard ideas about the pickup drop-off area along Tiburon Boulevard and whether that could be formalized. We heard about uses like pickleball that may have more noise, needing to be buffered so that they wouldn't be causing impacts to neighbors. There's a last amphitheater. Thank you. You're able to see down. One of the concepts that we had, and what you'll see it carried through again, included an amphitheater concept for Blackie's Pasture, and that received good support. So what I'm showing here is totally a concept, and it's intended to show how community desired uses could fit together in a way that really is, that has harmony, that works together as a park. It doesn't mean that this is what the park is going to look like, but it is a concept that can be the first step on the path to potentially a future design that would improve recreational and experiential qualities at this site. And it's too small for all of you to see at this detail, but I'm going to try to just draw a few key points. First, to orient everyone, left on this map is north, I would say. So what you see on the left where it says community, that's referring to the area around Blackie's Pasture and Greenwood Beach. And we're suggesting that that area has a generally more of like a community or civic focus. Then the central area, which is where the sanitation ponds are, and as many of you know, the town is in the process of purchasing that site, and so this park, there's a real opportunity to actually add some new features, some new park experiences. So that area, we're calling it multi-generational. And then finally to the south, which is to the right on this map, that's the south of the Knoll area. And we're suggesting, based on feedback that we got and on the concepts that we showed, that that could be an area that would be more casual, feel more like a neighborhood park. So here we have some blown up diagrams of each of those three core parts of the park. And it's really just conceptual, and hopefully there will be some more feedback. But what we're envisioning here would be, first of all, more opportunities for natural conservation and for natural processes to shape the drainage that comes down through the pasture. We're seeing a Blackie's Memorial area at the heart of that pasture, an all-inclusive playground, which would be placed near the parking lot so that you could drive there and have that great destination play area. Also bocce, and the pasture we're seeing as potentially a flexible space where events could take place occasionally, based on some structure that would be established by the town. We're also showing this amphitheater, which could be just natural, embedded into the slope. That slope presents the opportunity for that terraced seating, and that could be a small performance space that could be responsive to things that we've heard from the town, from community members. Also, we're showing their a picnic pavilion, so a covered gathering area, as well as individual picnic pods. And already that area has picnic tables in it, but this would give it a little bit more, there'd be a pavilion, so something a little bit more there. And then we're showing a nature loop, and really a nature-focused area near the beach.
I have one question. On the pavilion, what would
Yeah.
that be? What do you intend instead of just, right now there's the picnic tables?
I
What
think
would
the
the
idea is it
pavilion
could be a
be?
covered space, that there was interest among some community members for a covered gathering space. At the sanitation ponds and McKegney Green, this area, where you see tennis and pickleball proposed, that is where those sanitation ponds are. So this is one way that area could be used, based on feedback that we got from the community. There's an opportunity for tennis, pickleball. We're showing a teen hang area, wanting to really be listening to that feedback about providing more for teens. Things like, I think it would be a kind of a good sort of junction kind of place to see and be seen, but also kind of be in a nook. Olivia was kind of pointing that out to me today. And we're also showing a restroom and storage building there, which is something we heard from the McKegney Green Athletic League users, that they were missing a restroom within view and a place to store their equipment.
So what would be stored in the building?
I'm not exactly sure, but I think it was the lacrosse or the soccer league that had some materials that they hoped to leave there.
Okay, because they also have a space right now on the opposite side. And I'll save my comments for public input, but a storage building in our park has been a very controversial issue. And for 2 years, the public weighed in and said they don't want a storage building in the middle of our park.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
And then finally, the south of the Knoll area, we're looking, the green here is the Knoll itself. We see the opportunity for an improved trail and a little trailhead plaza, an upgraded playground and tot lot. So you have that playground already, but you could upgrade the equipment there as it needs to be replaced on its regular life cycle. We've got a little picnic area, a public art space, and then really important, there's a multi-use field that could be located at where there's currently sort of these knolls of sort of undulating knolls. If that could be graded, it could be more useful and could become a good multi-use field and could be really a good augmentation of what we have at McKegney Green. We're also showing a sand volleyball and small skate park. These are things that we heard about. Again, I don't want this to be perceived as it has to be that there, but this is a way to illustrate how priorities that we heard about could be fit into this site in a way that makes sense. And then finally, we're also having some recommendations here for the trail. And the big one here is that,
I'm sorry, I had a question on the previous slide.
yes,
Could you talk a little bit about the upgraded tot lot? Is that what's existing now? You're talking about upgrading, or is that a new amenity in the park?
I think it could be either. It is a tot lot and it could be simply upgraded with equipment replacement when needed, but we'd love to hear more comment on that.
Okay, thank you.
So the idea here, the pink line is showing a proposed alignment for the Bay Trail. The idea here is that right now the Bay Trail uses the old rail trail through the park, and then makes a sort of a tight little dog leg down around the sanitation ponds. And what we're suggesting is that the Bay Trail actually could have an alignment that stays closer to the water, and that would help the old rail trail merge the walkers and the pedestrians that are coming down from the neighborhood, and keep the bike traffic more along the edge of the park. So we see the opportunity there for that. It's going to be challenging because it requires some coordination with BCDC, but it could be a good idea. So this again it's too small to see, but what we're trying to get across here is there are a lot of priorities that are recommended on these diagrams. Some of them are going to be more costly, and others are going to be easier to achieve, low-hanging fruit. And those are the ones that we're seeing down low on the cost scale. So you see cost on the y-axis and priority on the x-axis. And we may need to like work on where each of these things are placed exactly. But the idea is what the town can achieve in the next 15 years isn't going to be everything, but it may be a good combination of a few high priority and potentially high cost items. And also maybe there's an opportunity for a larger number of lower cost, high priority items. And I think that's the sweet spot.
So I have a question about the chart. So what sort of data went into the costs portion of this?
We haven't done any cost analysis yet. It's purely qualitative at this point.
Oh, so the where the items fall on the chart is based off of just kind of experience?
I'm sorry?
Is it like just sort of based off of experience that these items make? We think they cost more, we think other items cost less?
Right.
Okay. And then where they fall in terms of priority is based off of the process, surveys, public comment, et cetera.
Right.
Okay.
And again, I don't want to get into the weeds of where everything falls on this because we're still working, but I think the main thing I'd like to get across is we are working on understanding how the higher cost, high priority and lower cost, high priority items fit together in a good scheme. And that's what we will be building as we build the plan.
And I think that's really important when we think about the output of this process, when we think about the action plan and thinking about after we've received all the public comment, plus town council input, plus post input, plus other input points. And we think about how do we take this set of recommendations and do something with it, right? So that's work. I think cost, maintenance, et cetera, is all going to be really important.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate everyone's patience. There's a lot of material. Downtown, we also focused on some opportunities to make downtown work better as a recreational space. So we got some specific input on Tether Park, which was, we had tested this idea of potentially a small community pool there, and it was seemingly well received. And that if tennis, which is right now, there's tennis courts there, if there's a pool there, that those tennis courts should be relocated. They shouldn't be lost. That Tether Park is under the radar right now. It's not well known that it could be just have a better identity. And that it could have a small play structure for toddler age kids. It's kind of missing downtown right now. We also heard about the Library Plaza or Zielinski Park being a good place for a playground or a bocce court. People weren't necessarily aware that there are public restrooms downtown. There was interest in the idea of a play structure near the ferry dock. It brought to mind right away for some people the Larkspur Landing. I don't remember the name of the shopping center there, but that playground. Better access to maps. Once again, that's a theme. And then the idea of a trail along the marsh was well received in a way, but I think people were also concerned, and we certainly heard from residents of those condos that they didn't like that idea. So we're showing here an updated concept for how recreational experiences can be woven together downtown to create a kind of a whole that's better than the sum of the parts, perhaps. What we're seeing here in green are sort of walking, pedestrian green walking environments. So you have Tiburon Boulevard, which has a good streetscape. The north-south, or what looks like north-south on this map because of its orientation, would be those rain gardens and trails that could be developed, and this needs a lot more study. But Beach Road appears to be a good location for some kind of a linear green park that could also have a stormwater management feature and a trail. And the cool thing about that trail is that it would connect all the way up, all the way down from the bay up to the hills with a better connection to the Old St. Hilary's path. Over on the right, you're seeing an inset diagram that is a concept for Tether Park, where you would replace those tennis courts with a small community pool and a small tot lot. There are some other ideas on here as well. There's
I have one question.
yes.
When you say a small community pool, what do you mean by small?
I think that this one is modeled on Strawberry, but smaller. So
Okay,
it's
'cause
like,
then-
I think it's comparable to Strawberry Pool without the sort of, I think that pool also has a learner pool.
So, did the public ask for a small pool, or I mean, the public comment I heard asked for like a pool, a public pool, and it was big enough for all of the water sports. So water polo and all of those sports.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really great question, and we haven't gotten
Okay.
into the details of the pool, just that
Yeah, and the location was not specified. This is just an idea you guys had.
this is an idea.
Okay,
We tested another location at the sanitation pond site, but the challenge there was access. There could be other sites that we didn't test.
okay, but, okay.
What do we mean by access? Because
parking.
kids can ride their bikes there from school, like right after school. Or do we mean like cars? Do we mean wheelchair or ADA access? What do we?
Exactly, yeah, we would have had to bring in vehicle access into the park for pickup, drop off for accessible access to that.
Well, actually, a lot of places that are similar would have like golf carts and other things. So was that explored? Or other alternative means for getting people to the pool,
Yeah, no, I don't think we really explored that. So if that would be a better location, that if council would prefer us to really explore that more, that would be good feedback.
Yeah, I would prefer that.
Do we have those same challenges with McKegney as it stands now? Because right now we have, or at least when McKegney was built, or redone, I don't think, at least as far as I understand, we didn't make any changes to access for McKegney, and that's a pretty high traffic area.
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
I think what you're trying to do here is give us the global ideas rather than, right, how we could make it work. Is that right?
Yeah, we're trying to take it as far as we reasonably can, I think, with with a lot of input, but also wanting to stay, this is a Parks and Recreation system plan, not an individual project. No, we're not going to be defining every project in detail.
We'll forgive you. Yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, so again, just a conceptual representation of different projects, fall in different places on the cost and priority spectrum. And then we looked at small neighborhood parks, and this actually, we didn't think this was necessarily going to be such a focus, but it was really drew a lot of passion. So we looked at Bel Air, Belveron, and Cypress Hollow. And so with Bel Air Park, what we heard is summarized on the left. What we recommending preliminarily tonight is on the right. In this case, it's really kind of the same. What really emerged that what that site needs is improved drainage, increased maintenance and trash pickup. It doesn't necessarily suit developed recreational uses, but there could be some amenities that make it more comfortable, like a walking path and a bench, a place to sit. And critically, the issue was just maintenance and the way dogs use that site.
May I ask a question? I'm sorry, but I kind of forgot. Bel Air Park is that little park that's surrounded by homes and not visible from the street, is that right?
That's the one.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Then we've got Belveron Park, which is a little bit larger, but even less, I think, visible in some ways. It's right across Tiburon Boulevard from Blackie's pasture. It's in a little draw, and it used to be where the railroad went, which is part of the old rail trail. So it's just a little narrow linear park. People were interested in getting a little bit more visibility for that park. They liked the natural character of it, and that could be played up. They saw it as an opportunity for a small toddler-oriented play structure. So yeah, we are recommending a play area, potentially. Maybe a bike loop or a learner path was something we heard was interesting. Could be more welcoming entry improvements, pretty light touch.
I have a question about the Belveron Park. Did you, and I think I asked about this a couple of times in the process leading up to here. Do we have official dimensions of that park? Were you ever able to find the dimensions of that park?
Yeah, I have access to those. I can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then Cypress Hollow Park is one that has obviously been in this room, a subject of conversation in this room a lot. I think we understand the need to replace and upgrade the play structures. We heard sort of a desire for a small designated fenced area for dogs. Definitely the need to restore the lawn and improve maintenance. And also to try to take the pressure off that park so that it doesn't get used by a lot of outside families that are going there now because there aren't a lot of options. So by creating other playgrounds elsewhere, I think that that's a part of the solution for Cypress Hollow. And then finally, looking at open spaces and trails. We've put a lot of energy into creating what I think is a pretty complex and good map of the trail system as it is today, and as there are opportunities to make it more connected and make it serve the community better. I'm not going to go into detail on this map, but what you see along just a high level, you can see the San Francisco Bay Trail along the shore, which is represented in red and yellow undertone. And then you can see the idea of a Tiburon Ridge Trail, which is discontinuous, but is promising and is nearly continuous with a gap in the middle. And then we're also recommending consistent, and this is based on things that we heard. So I'm going to focus on the recommendations bullet list, but it's coming from the column on the left. Add consistent and clear signage at trailheads, provide online map, add strategic amenities at trailheads, connect trails with existing parking, and pursue shared parking agreements. There are a couple of opportunities there, I think. Continue to work to close the gaps in the trail system, and then continue to work on ways to enforce an e-bike use situation that works well for the open space trails. So thank you all for your patience. There's a lot of material. I'm expecting there may be a lot of comments, and so we'll be taking good notes and appreciate your time.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the council?
So going forward.
Sorry, go
No,
ahead.
sorry. So have you sort of warehoused the data of for particular ideas, both like the magnitude of the positive public comments and the negative? Because I feel like at some point it would be helpful on a per idea basis to see a graph of the magnitude of those different sides. It's one thing to have 3 people for and 1 against, or 50 people for and 20 against. Like, it's ultimately that might be helpful for us. Do you have that kind of information?
We don't, but we will be putting together a summary of community engagement for the plan itself, and we will be thoughtful about how to represent community opinion. And sometimes, we don't want to, I think, mislead. When we get a small amount of feedback, it can be actually misleading to be too data driven about it because it's sort of a subset of the community. We feel a lot more comfortable using the statistically valid survey because it's a large sample size and reflecting that in that way. But
All right, so perhaps before the council, if the council has questions, they should go ahead. But if there's suggestions on what should be in the plan, I would suggest we hold that until after public comment.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
I
okay.
knew they'd love it. All right, at this time, I would like to open this to public comment. Yes, ma'am,
Yes, go first.
because we really want to hear you.
My babysitter has like 10 minutes left. Thanks for letting me go first. My name is Beth Mix and I own a home in Old Tiburon and we've been here for 4 years. My husband and I live there with our 2 girls. One just turned 4. She was one of the first pandemic babies born in March 2020. And my other daughter was born in June 2022. So 4 and 1.5. So I spent a lot of time outside. Most of my time with my children has been outside because they were pandemic babies. And I just want to thank everyone for putting all this great stuff together. Since I am an at-home mom and I was a class parent in a local preschool, I feel like I have a pretty great representation and an idea on what people want and need. And I think there's been this really recurring theme from the community out there, because a lot of parents can't make this stuff because it's bedtime and dinner, that everyone wants inclusivity for babies and children. For example, parking, like getting kids in and out of a car seat. If you're pregnant, walking far can take a while or be challenging. Also, just a lot of us are busy taking care of kids and it's hard to make these meetings. So we just wanted to let you know that we would love it if the babies and children had, equal vote, just like everyone out there deserves an equal vote. All right, so my top 3 would be, the first one would be, I would love a recreation center, specifically the pool, but I would also love a gym. I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but the TPC is right now is a 4-year wait list and a $28,000 initiation fee. So unless you're willing to do that, then you can't really access a pool. I can't do that right now. And I've been calling around and there are no drop-ins for children, except for at Mill Valley on weekends, limited times. So that's my number 1. I know it came up about potentially moving the location. I actually live near Tether Park and I'm super supportive. It sounds like it wouldn't displace the tennis folks either. If you talk about another location, like by McKeagney Field, kids get wet and cold and you just really have to get them in the car quickly. And as a parent, you're a Sherpa. So unless there's parking, it makes it really challenging to go that far. But if you are looking for other locations, I know that Bank of America is like up for sale or lease and there's really nothing there. My second vote would be for Blackie's Pasture, the option Greb. I just love that I had an inclusive park right by the parking lot so that all ages could benefit. The amphitheater would be great for local schools to go to, where they could do theater or sing songs or have an adventure outing. I also like that it included ideas for kids of all ages. I remember being in middle school and high school in Texas and there was nothing to do. So I think that's really nice that people are thinking ahead. Lastly, on behalf of my husband and his swim team, it would be really fun to have water access and an open dock, both for open water swimming groups, kayaking and supping. And then one other thing more for the consultants was in one of your pages, it said, the recommendation would be for teens and seniors. If you could just adjust that to be more inclusive of maybe like children and seniors, that would be great. Thank you. I think that's it. Oh, and this is just completely aside. I'm not sure if this is the group, but there's the lagoon around those brown condos. For some reason, there's no fence and that's super dangerous for children. And I have called the Public Works about it and there's really I don't know who I called, but I couldn't figure it out. But if kids are running around there and you're trying to make that, we go around, we scooter around, there you can just fall in. So it'd be nice to look into that for safety reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Would someone else like to make a comment? Yes, sir. Come, introduce yourself and tell us what you want us to hear.
Hello, my name is Bryce Phillips. I've lived in Tiburon my whole life. I'm in 7th grade. And yeah, this is my best friend Carter.
Yeah, so I was also born and raised in Tiburon. I am also in 7th grade and we both go to Delmar Middle School. We're just kind of trying to put some input from us and our peers.
Yeah. So I'm a part of the club, as you guys know, Tiburon Peninsula Club, and some of my friends aren't. and I like to hang out with them a lot of the time, but we don't have an activity that we can do together. And we all like playing sports like tennis, and I like to introduce them to pickleball, but they're not a part of a club that we can use, so.
Yeah, so that's probably our biggest point, pickleball, as well as the teen hangout areas. Because besides Waypoint and Center Lounge, there's not a ton of options.
Also, my grandparents are like big pickleball players. They loved it so much that they kind of got me into it when I was younger, and now I play a lot with them. So technically, they brought me to tournaments and stuff, but now with Tiburon Peninsula Club, they don't really have kids or stuff because adults usually use the pickleball courts and fill them up pretty easily. So if we had extra pickleball courts, I can invite my friends to play. Maybe we would play some tennis maybe and go in the pool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely all of that, as well as the amphitheater we thought was an amazing idea, the public pool. And also just to add on, we both live on Gilmartin Drive, and I know most of the other ones have crosswalks, but it makes it very difficult for us because there's no easy way to get across the street. At least when I'm biking from my house, like I have to like walk along the side of the street, which is not very safe, trying to cross without a parent.
Yeah, we always have the threat of being run over by a car, which my parents don't really like that we think that way. But since they're very busy with their work and stuff, that we usually bike to school, and we usually have to take the really sketchy route along the side of the road to get to the crosswalk, at least a couple hundred feet down.
So you're talking about riding the shoulder of Tiburon Boulevard?
Yes.
Yeah, trying to get to the crosswalk.
Down with the stoplight. So it would be really nice to have just a crosswalk, maybe stoplight, so cars know to slow down when kids are passing by.
Yeah, like one of those.
And grown-ups too.
Yes.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, that's all for me to say,
Yeah,
but
thanks.
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Phillips, and thank you, Mr. Carter. We really appreciate that you took time to come and talk to us. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Eric Pfeiffer. I'm a resident of Tiburon. I live at 1683 Mar West, just adjacent to the pickleball courts that the kids were talking about that the Tiburon Peninsula Club is operating. And I want to give a different viewpoint on pickleball from neighbors who are subjected to the sound of it all the time. And I also want to commend the Parks Commission for a process that was inclusive and involved surveys and discussions with neighbors about the impact of what the parks would have and try to come up with a good set of parks. It looks like a good plan to me. And I actually also want to go on record as saying that I am not personally opposed to pickleball. My mother plays pickleball. And it's seems like a reasonably fun game, and I have no objection to it. What I do have an objection to is the staccato sound that it makes that echoes through my patio and through my living room and through my kitchen, that our realtor and the real estate attorney that we hired think has reduced my property value by between $500,000 and $750,000. So as the Parks Commission goes through its process of trying to come up with a nice set of parks, trying to do the things that people obviously want to do, there's a lot of people in this room who like the game of pickleball and want to play it, that you do it in such a way that doesn't create polarization in the community, ruin home values like mine, and frankly, set neighbors at odds with each other. So the way that the Tiburon Peninsula Club did this, they started playing pickleball without a conditional use permit. It is well known to be a very loud sport. Everybody in every community throughout the country is talking about that fact. They're talking about the fact that it's loud and it's disruptive. And so if you're me and you want to go to your home and have it be a sanctuary or have it be a place where you can just sit outside and enjoy dinner with friends or something like that, but you can't because the sound is echoing through your patio, you might think differently about the sport. So again, this is about public lands, as one of the council members pointed out. It's about the preliminary discussion that the Parks and Rec Committee is bringing forward to look at what to me looks like a really fantastic set of parks. And also, you know, will on balance enhance what it's like to live in Tiburon, make it a better place. And so I sat next to a nice woman who has a pickleball thing with her and indicated that she loves the sport and you know, leaned over to me, and I leaned over back to her and I said, she said, "Are you for or against?" I said, "I'm against." And she said, "Well, I'm for." And I said, "Well, how about indoors?" And she said, "Yeah, that would work for me." And so I believe that the standard for pickleball should be that it is played indoors. If you did it that way, you could put lights on the pickleball courts. You could play until 9 or 9:30 at night. You could do it whenever you want. You could play it in the rain, which they can't do at the Tiburon Peninsula Club, and you wouldn't have the issue of disrupting neighbors and making it a public nuisance that makes it impossible for me to eat outside or invite friends over to my house. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Nicole Voss. I recently moved to Tiburon 2 years ago, really made it our home. I'm a mother to almost a 2-year-old son and expecting another one on the way in July. Really excited to get involved. This is a 15-year plan. We're talking 10, 15, 20 years. So want to make sure we're thinking big and like what all the options on the table. So some of our top priorities for my family and some of the other parents we've talked to is a pool. It's really, Tiburon is so beautiful. We're surrounded by water, and it's really important that we teach our children how to swim. Currently, TPC is unattainable for me at the moment, and it would be really great to have that safe space and swimming lessons to teach our children. Another is playgrounds for all ages. We don't, I live on the Corinthian Island, the Tiburon side, and we don't have a lot of small play areas for children on that side of Tiburon. They're mostly up the peninsula, and we spend most of our time downtown. We think that could be closer to downtown or even the library. We do spend a lot of time at the library, and we see opportunity to connect the areas through walking paths and have that walkability and increased community interaction. And the other is, you know, since it is 15 years, my child will probably be 15, 17, and a skate park is one of the things that we're prioritizing. Thank you. Really appreciate getting involved in all of the work and the surveys and the virtual Zooms. It's been really helpful, especially with late night events like this. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
I hope the public realizes that it may be helpful to you to be here, but it's helpful to us too. Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry, please.
My name is Krista Keeling. I've lived in Tiburon since '82 and have helped in school, teaching German, teaching soccer, and was very involved in the community, always played tennis. But recently I started pickleball. In November, I moved to Brazil where my son lives, and lo and behold, the city donated the land to build 2 pickleball courts. I paid to build them, but they're there. And the joy, the connection of young and old from all flights of life, you know, poor people, rich people, they are having a great time. It's not close like the TPC the gentleman was complaining about. It is at the big recreation center field. So I just wanted to share how other people do it and how well it's received. The mayor came to the pickleball court and shook my hand. Thank you for doing something for the city. You know, I just couldn't believe it. Everyone was looking at me. Anyway, I just wanted to share that pickleball really brings people together and makes them happy and brings the kids off the streets and stupid ideas. It's good for us. Thank you.
Very quick. Hi, my name is Janu Gordon. I live on Solano Street. We bought our house 2 years ago. I have a 2.5-year-old and also expecting another boy in June. So pray for me for two boys. And just want to first of all thank everyone for the hard work. It's so impressive to see all the work that's gone into this and all the inclusive feedback you've taken along the way. I think for a lot of us, it's our first time being involved in a process like this, and it's really impressive to see the professionalism and how much thought goes into every step of the way. And just want to echo sort of, I think the two themes we're hearing tonight are how important these outdoor spaces are for bringing folks together of all ages, babies, teens, seniors. So for my family, echoing what some of the other folks have said, the pool would be a dream come true. I think a lot of us moved here because we love the water. We love to be close to the water. It's really important to a lot of us, and sort of a public accessible pool for everyone, regardless of financial ability would be really great. And then also just love the idea of water access, to be able to access these beautiful surroundings that we have. So those are the two things that are really important to me. And again, thanks everyone for all the work that's gone into this, and just feel really grateful to live here and be part of this community. Thank you.
Yes. Hi, I'm Kari Cusack, I'm a Tiburon resident. I live right up the hill from TBC. And it doesn't bother me. I'm pro pickleball, but we need more courts in Tiburon.
Hi, I'll be quite quick. Andy Hunt, I live in Reed Heights, Tiburon Knolls. I live up the hill. Some of these things will be therefore less impactful to me personally, but I'm the secretary to the Property Owners Association for that neighbourhood. And we've had a few discussions around this, and the two issues that come top of the list are one, noise. I'll leave that to the conversation that's already gone, and it is dependent upon exactly how the installations are put in and screening and noise and all the rest of it. But the real one I want to talk about, which hasn't so far been featured, is that whole lineal park there where the sanitation district site is, will attract more people. That's the whole point, I hear you say. But Stewart Drive, where we live, is very impacted by McKegney Field already when there's a lot of sports that go on there. The cars park up and down the curb there, make an already difficult junction even harder. That crosswalk has been notoriously bad for decades. I've lived here 17 years. I've nearly got run over twice myself. I've seen accidents happen. I've nearly got caught up in a few. So please, if we are going to put more activities just adjacent to Stewart Drive, that junction onto Tiburon Boulevard, please, 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 can we think about the parking situation in Stewart Drive and discourage it as much as possible? It's not safe. It's already a problem with McKegney. It will get doubly so. I completely support making that whole area as good as it can be. Please, let's think about the access point. We've already heard about further down Tiburon Boulevard and crossing that road. It is a bad one. That junction at Stewart Drive, because it comes over the ridge there, is unsighted and it is very dangerous. Even with the lights that they've put in, it is not good. So please, can we discourage parking in that neighborhood? Because I worry that it's going to get pretty bad. So on behalf of the Residents Association, that's our plea. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Would you?
Hi, I'm Matina Saramatis. I live in Belvedere, but I just want to say thank you for all the work. I'm excited. There's nothing on the list that's a bad idea. I wish some of these things were available when my daughter was younger. But I just wanted to say that I was very involved with Safe Routes to School when my daughter was younger, and making it safe to encourage biking to school. And I don't think everything that we had put on our list has yet been completed. So I think to help with the traffic and the parking is to maybe look at some of those ideas, because what those kids just brought to mind, the Gil Martin crosswalk and the Stewart. So some of those have been issues out there. And then I would have let my daughter bike to these places, but a lot of times I couldn't let her bike because I didn't feel it was safe. So I think incorporating safe biking with all these activities, it's another means for kids to get to them would be a great idea.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Please give us your name when you sit. That'd be great.
I'm Bill Teege. I've lived in Tiburon for about 35 years. I live right across from South of the Knoll Park. And I do love watching people on the bike path and getting utilization out of it. I always understood that north of the Knoll was the active park, south of the Knoll was the inactive park. And now I see some activities there that would make it a much more active area. And it must be taken into consideration that easy access to south of the Knoll is only because it cuts through Pine Terrace area. And that could be taken away, which would take away all of the potential traffic going to south of the Knoll Park. So please take that into consideration as you're looking at it, making south of the Knoll more of an active park. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. TJ. Is there any further comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Mike Shepard, I've lived in Tiburon for 27 years. I live past south of Knoll Park along the bike path. And I guess I add to the congratulations for the great job that Peter and his team at WRT have done. They've really taken into account what people told them and tried to make sense out of all of it. I just echo a couple of things that other people have already said. The first is, since there was no survey question about people who like the parks as they are, I speak for people who like the parks as they are, and especially south of Knoll Park. And as the surveys reflected, people want the open and peaceful quality. And that's what south of Knoll Park, I think, should be reserved for. And I think we're headed nicely in that direction. I'm not sure the skate park really fits with the nice, open, peaceful, tranquil quality of it. And so, you know, I guess I speak for the egrets and the herons, the Lorax here. But other than that, I think this is really a terrific set of proposals. And as to pickleball, I think it's great. A lot of people want to play it. Absolutely, the town should make space for them. I'm thinking that there's going to be a lot of controversy almost wherever you put it. And we're a rich town, thankfully. We should be building a facility where people can play pickleball all the time, and they're not going to disturb neighbors or decrease their property values.
Good job. Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Is there further public comment?
Hello, Marcelino Nogueiro, and I live in Belbron. Actually been here since 1965. So as timing goes, I remember when Blackie's pasture was the railroad tracks and the trestle went behind my house. So the question I have is, I haven't heard anything about funding for all of this. So hopefully there'll be some discussion about that. But more important is when all of these parks and all this stuff gets built, hopefully, it's all great stuff, by the way. What about maintenance? Because I always see, like Belbron Park, it was great. We loved it when it was first put in, but then maintenance was forgotten. And I think there's other parks that fall in that same situation. So whatever we do, let's make sure that we have some maintenance built into it. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Yes, ma'am. Oh, please.
I guess I'm the designated speaker.
And what would you like to speak to
I'm
us about?
I'm Carolyn Delena. You may know my daughter-in-law. So I'm very, I love Tiburon. I'm very supportive of the community. I don't know how many of you remember during COVID when nobody had toilet paper. Does anybody remember that in Tiburon? And a family came in and brought cases of toilet paper to their driveway for people to pick up. That was my family, so that people in Tiburon would have toilet paper. I mean, I had people cry when they got a case of 96 rolls, 500 sheets, 2-ply toilet paper. So I agree with Eric, who does not want to have noise near where he lives. Nobody should have that. I wouldn't want it either. But Tiburon loves, there's many people in Tiburon who love pickleball, and pickleball is growing. It is so good for the community. Let's just say this, when I've lived here 33 years. My children all went to school in the city, and then they went to boarding school. I had very few friends in Marin until pickleball. And once I started playing up at Hill, where there were 6 courts, or I'd go down to Foster City, where there are 6 courts, Eastwood in Mill Valley. It has been such an incredible change to my life to have so many friends. A lot of them are back here. All because of pickleball. I have one friend here who battled cancer, and pickleball actually helped her get back. Where are you, Laura? And she can speak to it as well. So I don't think I need to talk to you about the incredible benefits that pickleball brings to a community. It helps us forge new friendships with people that we otherwise wouldn't have had interaction with. But I do have a question. How many, especially our consultants, how many people here play pickleball? Okay, so with tennis, you have to go to a court with your 3 other people, and you play among your foursome, and then you go home. With pickleball, when you have open play, you can go just by yourself, and you put your paddle down, and you play with that group, and then you rotate. This is how we build community. We make friends through pickleball, which is so different from tennis. And this is how we all make friends, and we form these bonds. However, to do that, we really need 6 to 8 courts. So we really appreciate the 4 courts that you've put there. But I noticed that you have 2 tennis courts, which would be for 8 people, and you have just one little area of pickleball which would be for 16 people. So if you could take one of those tennis courts and change it to pickleball, we could have 32 people on that space. And there's lots, you drive by tennis courts and they're empty most of the time. Pickleball courts are never empty. So seriously, if we could have 6 or 8, that would facilitate open play. I belong to the TPC. When I go to the TPC, I have to bring my 3 people, and the 4 of us play, and then we leave. It's different from open play, which is what really builds community. So having said that, I love where you've put the courts. Could you maybe cover them? So that would, because I don't want these guys to complain. I don't want anybody to be upset by this. But if you could put, if you could put, either, I mean, there are economical ways to do it. I think there's bubbles, there's tennis or pickleball bubbles. And what I was reading in an article recently about the big problem with pickleball is not noise, it's planning. It's where the courts are put to start with. So if we can have
Would
them
you talk to us instead of the?
Sorry.
Yes.
So I thought he was
You'll listen.
okay. So if we could have covered pickleball courts right where you already have the 4, if we could have 6 or 8 right there, it would also not only eliminate the noise, but it would be great because then we wouldn't have to deal with the wind. It's going to be windy there. And I don't know if you know what a pickleball looks like, but it's a wiffle ball. We can't play very well in the wind. So if we could have some sort of covering that would eliminate the noise, and we could play lots, it would be really great. Exactly, exactly. So I think that's about all I have to say. I think I've covered everything. But thank you so much for including pickleball in the plan, and I hope you'll take to heart some of my recommendations. Thank you.
So we're not discussing this tonight, but I would really encourage you, whatever the outcome of how many courts, if any, of pickleball, that you show up with the same enthusiasm about funding them. Yes, anyone else from the public? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Carmody, and I am Carolyn's friend. I'm just going to add to why pickleball is so important and how it's really affected my life. I played field hockey till 2018. I played lacrosse, I played squash, I ran marathons, I've done the Dipsy, and I'm not telling you this just to brag. I'm telling you to just show you how important pickleball is because I don't do any of those anymore. I play pickleball. But very importantly is that in 2019, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and I was just devastated. I couldn't move. Every joint in my body was pain. Then in 2020, that morphed into lymphoma. So I went through chemo. And so for 2 years, I was sitting on a sofa. I was just devastated from my previous life. And then I found pickleball. And it changed my life because in the depths of my illnesses, I couldn't find joy. And pickleball gave me the joy. I started playing at the baseline, couldn't run on the court, just hit the ball. And it just gave me joy. I wanted to play. I dreamed about it before going to play the next morning. And it helped me physically, really helped me physically convalesce. But not only physically, but my mental, my emotional, my soul just really came out because of pickleball. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's very true. And I underscore what Carolyn says about community. As we age, we have very few opportunities to meet people. And I have met so many people, not just here in California, but on trips. When I go home to see my parents, I just take my paddle. And it's amazing because it's not just my friends, it's people who are older, people who are younger, people of different walks of life. And it's just incredible. And there are just so many intangible benefits to pickleball. And I know you've been hearing this over and over again, but you just need to hear it again because it's really important. And I'll leave it up to you guys to decide where to place the courts. But thank you.
All right, any further public comment?
And you don't have to guess where I'm coming from. My name's Cecilia Nunez, and I'm just going to say something different than what has already been said. Pickleball has changed my life, but I won't have to go through that. One thing I did want to add was I live in Green Bay, but I'm an equal opportunity player. I play in Novato Hill, public courts. I play TPC, private courts, Ross Valley, private courts, right? And Larkspur, Piper, and those are public courts. And one thing I love about public courts is I get to play with lots of different people. So you're talking about diversity. You just have one pickleball event in a weekend, you'll hit your diversity quota for sure. I'm Filipino, my husband's Mexican. We have Japanese, Chinese, British. A 16-year-old, my 19-year-old can get on the same court as Krista. And I won't say what Krista is. And so you just see that it just does bring a lot of people together. So you're talking about diversity. There you go. You got a check mark there. Another thing is I do go to Nevada, and what do? I go play over there, and then I go fill up my gas. I go maybe to the grocery store. So you got to think of that impact too. There is a financial impact, a benefit of people coming into your community that doesn't necessarily live in this community, because we will go and eat after pickleball, go grab, go get groceries and go to again, fill up a gas station. So there's some other benefits, not just having us coming in and being part of this community, but also adding to your community in this financial impact. So just make that show. Thank you for your time. Thanks.
Is there any more public comment? Yes, do come. It seems as though pickleball makes us very articulate also.
Hi, my name's Chris Deniston, and I'm a resident of Belvedere. I've lived here 27 years. I won't go on and on about pickleball, but I will say, as someone who doesn't have children, it's the first time I've actually met people who are not just friends, but they're the type of people who brought food to me when I'm ill. They look after me, and I do the same. And so we say community and we say friendship. I wish there was a way to describe the depth of the community support that you get off the court. The other thing I wanted to kind of build on, Cece, what she said, is traffic. I sat in on a rec meeting a few years ago, and the discussion was about volleyball. And a lot of the families mentioned, and I think that's a great idea to have outdoor volleyball as well. But one of the key points is families are having to leave the peninsula in order to find a game. And pickleball players are doing the same thing. I play 5 times a week, sometimes twice a day. That means I'm going up and down Tiburon Peninsula, and I'm part of the problem that we are all trying to solve. This road is clogged, and it's only going to get worse. So why not have that here? And then switching off of the pickleball subject, I did want to echo the comment earlier, I forget the gentleman's name, but about the importance of keeping or trying to maintain some sort of peaceful quiet to what we now have at south of Knoll, in contrast to organized play north of Knoll. I came to this meeting from south of Knoll and was just so astounded once again at the quiet beauty of that little area. And so when I saw the design of, fields, organized playing fields, I thought, oh no, like we shouldn't go overboard, let's have a little bit of both, because Tiburon is all about the quiet beauty as well. So finally, I did want to just encourage one small thing, and that is more parking for bikes. We already have a problem at Blackie's parking lot. A lot of that could be solved by the fact that we all have e-bikes now. Let's actually encourage each other to use them and by providing a place to park them. That's it. Thank you.
All right, is there any further public comment? I am seeing none. I will bring it. Is there someone online?
We do have a few members online, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
I will start with Bruce King.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Bruce King, and I live on Hacienda Drive, and I'm sorry that I couldn't join you in person tonight. When I addressed the town council 2 weeks ago, I expressed my concerns over the map lines which WRT had included on their presentation. I appreciate that it appears that some of my concerns have been addressed since that time. To be consistent, the end of existing trail notation should probably be added to the Martha property on the latest map. 2 weeks ago, unfortunately, I ran out of time before I could finish my last sentence, stating that I would be happy to discuss what appears to be other errors and omissions from their presentation. 2.5 years ago, after a post commissioner called one of my neighbors regarding the use of hacienda, I decided that it may be a good idea for me to better understand the town's trails and trailheads. Therefore, I prepared a presentation of all the town's trailheads, taking pictures of the trailhead and the surrounding street and available parking. As a result, when I saw WRT's map legend regarding minimal on-street parking and no parking, I immediately recognized that their map legends did not correspond to the pictures which I had taken. While there may be some type of explanation regarding a few of the locations, I believe that only one of the 28 locations on their trail map is completely accurate. I brought this matter up during a virtual workshop and later submitted one picture as an example, yet nothing has changed. In addition, a street name continues to be misspelled, and it's a drive, not a lane. I can only recommend that the committee, subcommittee members, and the town staff take the time to review these issues with WRT for accuracy, consistency, and clear messaging. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for your comments.
Bruce.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, good evening. This is Adam Khan and Charmaine Ahmed from 25 Mark Terrace, Delmar, Tiburon. We're parents to a 2.5-year-old. Really appreciate everyone's time in the presentation this evening. I just wanted to make a few comments from the perspective of a young family within the town. We noticed that the plan for the parks is more geared towards perhaps older children with less programs for the younger families. Would also like to point out, we've been in the town now 3 years, have paid property taxes for 3 years. The same group that is new to town with these young families also more often than not has a disproportionate portion of the property tax that's paid. So we were just approaching this with the attitude that, again, we expect a longevity within this town, and for all the services that are being proposed, this group would pay a good bulk of it by that metric. My wife would like to say some comments as well.
I just also wanted to emphasize a high priority, as may have been spoken before, for regarding Richardson Bay Lineal Park, specifically the South of Knoll Playground.
Volume, please. It's a little hard to hear.
Specifically, sorry, wanting to emphasize, is this better? Okay, wanting to emphasize high priority for specifically the South of Knoll Playground at Richardson Bay Lineal Park, which is currently split into the 2 areas for the younger kids under 5 and for older over 5 generally. The play structures for both areas really need to be upgraded. This isn't to make new activities, but rather just the structures themselves need to be upgraded, as they are very outdated, damaged, rusted, and especially after the storms from just this year. When we've come to the park, there's the swing is broken, and it was so rusted that it was dangerous and not even moved yet at that time. And then later it was that portion was taken down. So a lot of it is just becoming really hazardous. And so that's why I wanted to communicate and emphasize the need for attending to those structures, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment?
Yes, next speaker, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Donald Nevins. I am requesting that the town council and related departments, prior to any approvals, investigate the effects of pickleball sound on areas of our community. There is one area in Tiburon, perhaps among others, which I am directly aware of, which may be significantly affected by the funneling and intensified amplification of pickleball sound. This sound seems to increase in amplitude as the elevated gain ascends up the bowl-shaped hillside to homes. This amplification has been evident, for example, when there have been fundraisers with music held at McKegney Green. Technically trained sound engineers and perhaps physicists who can explain this phenomena may be necessary to clarify the extent of the sound. Please understand, I am not referring to medical damage to individuals' hearing of 70 decibels. I am concerned about the intrusive transmission of mid-frequency sound pitch occurring regularly and unremittently in, as one of the gentlemen previously said, a staccato, pop, pop, pop like sound and the effect on residents' well-being. I have submitted a list to Town Engineering and Public Works of potential sections of streets which may be significantly affected by this bowl or funnel-like effect. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Is there any further public comment?
Seeing none.
Then I'll close the public comment at this time and bring it back to council for any comments to our consultant. Are there any comments?
Yes.
All right. I just have one comment with respect to this. I know that this is focused on what we can do here in developing priorities as a consequence of public engagement, and what you've told us now is the information we're getting from the public engagement. I would be hoping in the final report, because people mentioned it, a lot of them find these amenities in other places. It means they have to drive there, but to many of our activities, people drive from their homes anyway. We live on hills. We're small communities here in Marin County, and some of our communities like Corte Madera have huge, expansive flat parks, and others are hilly like ours with the dearth of flat areas for easily attainable recreation and building options. So I hope in the report, not as a suggestion or a recommendation, we do give some information about which of these amenities are available in other nearby towns that are accessible. For example, there is a huge pool in Mill Valley. I wouldn't want to be driving there all the time, but daily passes are available. I think that information should be available, especially since it's unlikely that we'll be able to supply all the amenities that people are really excited about. And I would be excited too. Are there any further comments? Yes, John.
Yes, so first of all, I want to thank our staff and our consultants. I think it's a really great presentation and gives us a lot to think about, which is, I think, the stage that we're at. So I really appreciate that. And thanks to our post subcommittee. What I'd like to do in my comments, I'd like to, so we were just talking about amplifying. I'd like to amplify a little bit of what we heard from Mr. Shepherd, who identified himself as our town Lorax. And I want to emphasize some things that I'm thinking about. I think that in this kind of process of master planning, there is an inherent pro-development bias, because what happens is you get a list of everything that everyone wants, and you try and accommodate as many of those items as you can. And before you know it, you've created a kind of a quilt of activity across the park. And in particular, I don't know if we still have access to the slides. Can you show the South Knoll slide?
Like the lights.
No, no, it's okay. It's just. Yeah, when I saw the South Knolls slide, I recoiled a little bit because, as was mentioned by a number of speakers, that area is kind of a beautiful natural area on the bay with green rolling hills. One of the things that you said that also caused me to recoil a bit was when you talked about the multi-use field, and you said, well, we could just grade that area and turn it into a nice flat field. And I guess I think that balance is really important in this plan, and I think it's hard to remember when trying to check off as many things as possible on people's lists, that one of the big things that we want to do is preserve the beauty. And you know, it was the first bullet point that you added, the kind of peaceful open space that we have here. I think Richard Bay Lineal Park is really our jewel. It's precious. And I guess I want to think really hard before cutting it up into lots of little pieces to satisfy lots of different needs. One of the items that I also thought, if you could go to the slide that had the priorities, the cost versus priorities. So one of the things that I think, and I don't know, I mean, I know that this is an approximate kind of chart based on, it's an inexact science, right, in terms of both cost and priority. But I guess what I think is that when we're talking about this particular park, this particular beautiful jewel of Tiburon, anything that's to the left of the line of priority, I wouldn't do. I mean, there's no need for us to try and get everything crammed into the park. I think we should look at the things that are the highest priority for people and try to accommodate them. But I just don't think that we need to chase after everything that everyone mentioned. I do have a question. I think I saw quickly on the chart that you had about the pop-up meetings, that the one on the Richardson Bay Lineal Park, I think it said that there were 7 people that attended. Is that correct?
We did a virtual workshop in February that was focused on Richardson Bay and downtown, and it was not very well attended. I don't remember how many it was, if it was 7. We also had, previously, we did have a walking tour workshop there.
Okay.
So that actually did.
So you had some more attendance.
Did have good attendance, and we got feedback on this park in the first round of engagement, which we didn't share back about tonight because we shared that.
Because you
in
already
November.
did. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that our ideas for that beautiful park weren't driven by a pop-up with 7 people at it. But if it's kind of more reflective of other information that we have, that's useful. Then the last thing I have to say about that park, the Richardson Bay Lineal Park, is that to my mind, I think there are a lot of great uses that you showed that could be developed there. I strongly have a bias against things that involve paving and buildings and extensive grading. I think that there were a lot of things that were on there that looked like they kind of blended well. But there were some things that were on there that are more that are not as natural, and I think would be disturbing to the overall environment that we have there. So that's what I would say about the park. The other thing, there are 2 things I would quickly add. One is that I was impressed by all the letters and the commentary tonight about pickleball. I think it's important for us to try and meet that need. I was impressed by the several people who mentioned that, one big way to solve the problem is to have enclosed pickleball courts. I don't think they belong on Richardson Bay Lineal Park. I think they might belong at Tether Park or some other location, but I do think that it's been conveyed to us loud and clear how valuable this is, and we need to find a way to accommodate it. I also think it needs to be, in a place that isn't so special as the lineal park. And the last thing I would say is just quickly, there were a number of comments about traffic and the effects of various proposals on traffic. I just want to remind everyone that we do have, or we are launching a significant comprehensive traffic study regarding the entire expanse of Tiburon Boulevard. And, you know, some of the items that are being looked at there, you know, have to do with increasing the ease with which we have bike transportation, but also looking at the impact of bike transportation on traffic. And I know it's hard to do, but I suggest that there be some coordination between both of these different planning efforts. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
So
Mayor Fredericks?
let me comment on what John just said. I agree with you in terms of prioritizing, but my preference for the consultant's work would be to take this fantastic list, including in places where we might have concerns, and then prioritize them, bring it back to council, and at that time, when we have a document rather than a report on community engagement, we can then make final decisions about the priorities. But I agree with you that it needs to be considered.
Mayor Fredericks, I just wanted to ask, before I make comments, we have two of our Parks, Open Space and Trails Commissioners here, Chuck Hornbrook and Angela McInerney. I want to see if they have any comments they would like to give to us. I'm not putting you on the spot, but please, we would also love to hear your comments. You've been part of an ad hoc committee for a really long time.
Chuck likes to talk.
Hey, I think first of all, I'd like to thank Peter and his team for providing a comprehensive report. Pardon me. I think that was really helpful. Yeah, so it was our first time seeing it until 4 this afternoon. So I was like a little lit with the direction. So I just directly thought it was great. Thank you. I thought you really addressed a lot of questions. And I think also, I think it's important during this session that the items that you all look through and give feedback to them so that we do have a good finished product in June that is actionable and gives directions to what we want to do for the next 15 years, including budgets and other items. So I think that that's just important. I think the public process has been great. As we all know, the process starts slowly in Tiburon until people go like, oh, wait, let's make some comments, make some comments. And I think that's been good. It could have been better, but it is what it is, right? So I think that's been great that we've been able to get those comments. And then finally, I think it's interesting, going to be some give and take in public and where things make sense. And there are some low hanging pieces. I mean, I've been a resident for 7 years, and it would be nice to know, like, well, where does this trail go and how do I get there? And because there isn't that information, or there were people like Bel Air Park is right around the corner from me. I didn't even know it was there. And I think those are important things for people who are new to the community to be inclusive and not be, oh, it's just the people who've been here for a while who know about that. I don't think that's fair. And I think that's important that these things make that an easy transition for people, regardless of they're coming here for the schools immediately or they're retired and they're empty nesters and they're moving here because they're like, I want to be close to San Francisco so I can jump on the ferry, but I'd love to know where I can go to trails. So those are my only comments.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. Angela?
You're good. We're good.
All right.
You said it all.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thanks. Can I make a few comments? Yeah. So let me just start first really quickly with pickleball. I do think what Councilmember Wellner said is really important. And as we move forward and pickleball becomes more in the decision queue, I really hope the proponents of pickleball take seriously what he said about thinking about what's your appetite for it indoors, because clearly that's the best with respect to sound mitigation. But if no one's going to play because it's indoors and you'd rather be outdoors, you need to let us know. So going forward, I'm not saying tonight, but make sure you're explicit about gathering the community's input on that and saying, yes, like, tell us what you think about indoor pickleball. Okay.
No, they want indoor.
So I need it to be further refined.
Okay.
So sort of
I'll be quiet.
bigger picture stuff here, like
this process for me started a few years ago when someone came with the idea for a volleyball court and, hey, let's put a sand volleyball court at, south of Knoll. At the time, the post commissioners, Commissioner Hornbrook and Commissioner McInerney rightly said, hey, look, sounds like a great idea, but let's think bigger about what we philosophically want to put in and how we make decisions about what we do and how they go forward. And this effort comes from that's the genesis of this, right? So what I hope at the end, and I really appreciate everything that you've done, is that as we move toward a final product, you recognize that you're not giving us a picture of what we're definitively going to do over the next 15 years, but as we decide how to prioritize things, how we architect our thoughts around where they go and what we do next, right? And what the community wants. And so that there's a framework that the master plan should be like 50% of it should be a philosophical framework around what the town wants. And then the other half of it should be a list of ideas and potential complications or benefits of them. So for example, it would be nice as this product matures, when you're talking about a pool, let's see analysis of the cost that would incur to just build it. And then what is the ongoing maintenance cost? Because every asset that we develop that comes out of this, whether it comes out of this plan or not, is going to end up going through like a capital projects planning process. And we're going to have to basically evaluate each one on its own merits in terms of funding and where it goes and all that kind of stuff and how we build it with how it fits in the master plan as context. I hope that all makes sense to you. I don't know if I said that correctly, but that's the way I see this document. And so, so for an example, like what Councilman, I'm going to put words in your mouth, Councilmember Wellner, but what he was talking about with that grebe picture of the Richardson Bay Lineal Park, what I heard him say was he would change it. Right now it says community, multi-generational, and casual. And the way I would change it based on his words is communities, good and Blackies. I would put active, which is where McKegney is in the Richardson Bay. And then I would have natural or nature where McKegney is. Because what you don't want is you don't want to take an average and make everything average.
Yes.
Right? I think it's good to have certain areas be designated for certain philosophies or features or activities. And so that way everybody has certain characteristics that they can see are preserved for them. Like, because I think having, one pickleball court every third of a mile down to Run Boulevard is exactly not what we don't want, right? You don't want everything to be the same. So, that's the way my brain is thinking philosophically about how to incorporate everybody's comments here. So, the Lorax has his area, and then the pickleball players have their area. And then the skate park people have their area or whatever, or the amphitheater. So that's the way I see it. And I hope that the document allows us to have a deeper discussion as you go forward with how it matures on that. I don't know how differently we agree or disagree on what philosophically we should do. But that's the way I like to think about it going forward.
Yeah.
I had one other thing to talk about, but I forget what it was.
I think it was really well said, and I would just say it's a little bit like zoning, right?
Yes.
That's good.
It's like this area is more passive zone, this is more active zone.
That's great.
And then we can take into account other variables like impacts on neighborhoods and make those kinds of choices.
And yeah, so the other thing I want to say is, to anyone out there, Mr. Shepherd, looking at you, who's like, oh my God, the town, I'm going to wake up and the town is going to be completely transformed after they pass this. Like, no matter what, this is going to be slow, right? Because we have to fund each one. We have to design each one. We have to debate each one. So, the probability of there being 8 of these things that's on the list of the bigger things in the next 5 years is pretty close to 0. But it would be great to do 1 or 2 things that have high priority and relatively low cost and relatively low impact. Put them in, see what people think, see how the community reacts. Like, that's how I'm thinking about how this moves forward, is again, to what Commissioner Hornbrook said, slowly at first, to make sure we're not cutting twice and measuring once kind of thing. So that's my forward-looking synopsis. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to chime in?
Yeah, so first off, thank you to Peter and the WRT team, post commissioners, and town staff. It's great to see this this update on where we are in the process and start to see recommendations start to form. I think one request that I have is let's ensure that we go back to our original RFP and the brief around what our key needs are as a community that are coming out of this engagement. And the ask is can we send that RFP to town council members? And also if we could include it in the minutes, if that's possible, or make it available publicly again, just to ensure that everyone understands what the output of this engagement are going to be. And I think that, you know, if everyone has it, they'll be able to see, like Mayor Fredericks, you had a concern about what is available in other towns. That's addressed in the RFP. So when we originally, when I was on the post subcommittee that put this together originally, prior to town council, we took a lot of time and effort in terms of going through and talking to different stakeholders around what we wanted to see in terms of output. So I think what you'll find in that RFP is that a lot of your questions may be answered. And in terms of what we should be getting back from WRT, that'll be answered as well. I think for the prioritization around high versus low priority and the costs, I'd love to see, you know, as we get closer to that final output, data behind that with numbers and also in terms of when we think about priority, how are we prioritizing? What's the methodology? I think, you know, I'd like to echo Commissioner Ryan's thoughts that I think also originally might have come from post Commissioner McInerney around a framework for decision-making as we move forward and as we think about the parks, because a lot of ideas come forward, some of them self-funded, and in the past, self-funded small ideas get done really quickly, and you know they can have a small impact. But if we think about do they serve the community? Are they serving a large amount of members of the community? Yeah. And then also wanted to thank the public for showing up and being a part of this entire process and providing feedback and all of these different touch points that we've had. We're here to represent you. The five of us are here. We're voted in. You voted us in. We're here to represent your needs and what you want within this community. And parks is a big part of that process. From an open questions that I have, I'd love to see the question of access for the parks around McKegney and the Richardson Bay Lineal Park addressed. It sounds like access was used as a filter for some amenities, but maybe not for others. So for pickleball, for instance, do we care about access there for pickleball? For tennis, is access an issue? Or is access an issue for any amenity that we put there? I think that's something I think we need to address. Are there mechanisms within Caltrans improvements or a traffic study that we should be cognizant of and thinking about from a drop-off standpoint? So being someone that once had 3 small children and dropped them off at McKegney, it was a challenge for me too. And when they got old enough to ride bikes, it became less of a challenge, right? So there are different things, I think, as you know, people with kids get older, and also, you know, there are ADA requirements, there are requirements for the elderly that we need to consider. The top amenities from the survey, if we go back to the November presentation, and there was some modeling out to look at percentage or maybe an estimated number of total households in Tiburon, which was 3,500. The modeling that was in that November survey, number 1 was kayak and stand-up paddleboard, and number 2 I think was community center, number 3 might have been pool, and then it sort of dropped off quickly after that. So I think there were, and probably still are, some very high from a survey response, from a public engagement response, amenities that are wanted in Tiburon, but we've kind of got to figure out whether or not they're feasible. And I would probably put pickleball in that too, based off of the feedback tonight. I think some of this, we need to figure out how how to do it. And I think that's a really important part of this process. And I'd like to see where we can, how and where for some of those really high priority ones. And that had a lot of feedback on them, because it seems like maybe they've sort of gotten jumbled with some of the things that less people in town originally were interested in. And then I'll sort of stop there.
Thank you, council member. I think that was very helpful. Is there any further comment?
Sure, I will go next. So I wanted to start by thanking Peter, WRT, David didn't get a shout out, and our obviously our town clerk and town manager, and Angela McInerney and Chuck Hornbrook. I have to call you out again because of all the work you've done for a very, very long time. And Angela's kind of the one that started this whole master planning process for the park and for Tiburon. So I want to give her a very special thank you. So I want to start by going back to a few things and I'll start last with, going through the deck again. I think that what is a bit distracting is seeing things in specific places. And some people might think it's a good place. Some people might think it's a bad place. I do think that if you're asking for comments on the actual slide deck, I'll do that first, and then I'll talk overall about broad things. So when you go to page 16, again, I don't think there should be restrooms and storage in the middle of the most beautiful part of our park. There's restrooms on the opposite side, and there's also restrooms over near the playground. And a storage building, again, was voted down by multiple boards and commissions. And it took about 2 years of public comment that people did not want a storage building or buildings in our park for storage. We have a public works courtyard. Then going over to the whole discussion on south of Knoll Park. I do also believe in certain areas should be just for passive recreation. I also want to see, one of the longstanding ideas for the sanitation ponds is a very large public pool, and that has been something that people have brought up multiple times over the years. And I want to go back to what Council Member Nickfar said about the survey, because the top amenities from the survey was the kayak sup launch, the community center, and the pool. And I think that we should be looking at all of these things in different areas. So we should not be taking certain criteria like parking and only applying it to one thing and saying, oh no, you can't do a pool there, but you could do, these other things because of parking. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So when this comes back to us, I would like to see less of a specific location, and I would like to see that we don't take locations out based on certain criteria that are not applied to all amenities, but only to some. And that we look at the broader picture of what is possible in each of these locations. So I'll just give the pool example. So you could put a pool in Tether Park. You could put a pool in where the sanitation ponds are. And you could also put one, down where the Bank of America building is. So I'd like to see, when the plan comes back, I'd like to see all of the options and not have one or two taken out. I think also with the priorities and costs graph, that's a little confusing, because if we don't have the costs, there is a line that's a cost line. So I'm wondering if there would be a way to, you know, if we're not gonna have an idea of what the costs are, we probably just shouldn't have that line. And it should be more a discussion about priorities and maybe a baseline cost.
I think costs are part of the, or part of
What's
one of the
coming back.
deliverables. Yeah.
Yeah,
believe so.
I think, no, and I don't mean it that we should not have an idea of what the costs are, but the graph is a little distracting because, you know, when we asked questions, it was kind of like, well, we don't really know what the real costs are. We just kind of approximated, or I'm not sure how it was done. And then, I would like to see whatever comes back to us also go back out to the public and be thoroughly vetted so that the public has input after. And so now moving away from the actual plan that was presented tonight, I just wanted to say that I'm super excited about this. When in our lifetimes will we ever have an opportunity to decide what goes in our town that will benefit all of us residents? And the one thing I've heard loud and clear is pickleball. And I'm embarrassed to say that I have never played, but I would love to try. Yes, I will come out and try it, but I don't always hit the ball in tennis, so I'm a little embarrassed about that. So I give you that right away. I'll tell you that. So I'm very excited about that. I do think a lot of my colleagues have talked about putting it in a building. I think that would be such a fantastic idea. I don't think Richardson Lineal Park, where the sanitation ponds are, is the right location. But I do think, you know, there was some talk about the Bank of America building, and, you know, that building has sat vacant for, I don't even know how long. How long, Greg? Do you have any idea? It's gotta be.
Been as vacant
20
as long as I've been here.
Right, and that's an area where there's parking, there's already a building, you know, I just think that would be a great spot. I think we've seen great support for a public pool. People have talked about accessibility issues, that they can't, you know, afford TPC because it's $28,000 to join. Now, some people can do that. Other people just don't have those resources. And also some people don't want to wait the 4 years to join, which is understandable. And, you know, having a public pool would allow people to swim. The swim teams could meet there.
It's gonna be a draft when it comes to us, so it's not gonna be a final version.
He's saying that
He's saying we're gonna vote on it.
No,
in
no,
June.
no. I'm saying the current,
Voting on it in June is what
the
he.
current timeline sort of indicates you will be voting on it in June, and I'm not suggesting you
yeah.
have to. I'm just saying this is the
So-
time to start thinking about an alternative path if council's, not comfortable with that process.
There's also a significant amount of work left to
Yeah.
get to get it into draft form and to get all the cost, cost breakdowns and put data behind all of this. I guess I don't know if we could go earlier than June. I don't know if that gives WRT enough time.
Well, I would just also say that, Jack proposed this kind of zoning concept, which is a whole different overlay on what's been presented that no one's seen. So, it seems to me that I just think there is a huge amount of work between now and the final draft. And if you bring it to us in a final format, expecting us to approve it in one night, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I also think it needs more work. I think that right now you've seen that, some of the priorities that were in the survey, I don't see reflected here. I think things have been taken out that were not, were taken out for different reasons that I don't know why. I also think that, this is the first time I've seen putting things, amenities in locations. But there's also in the RFP, we wanted to know something about the cost. There's nothing about the cost. And I don't think it's ready. I also would like to see it go back out to the public first. So, if the intention was that this, what you wrote tonight is a plan that's going to post and then to us for final adoption in June, I would say that's too rushed. I don't think that the council will be ready. And there's a lot of other items that came up tonight that we'd like to see. So I don't think we'd be ready by June.
So let me ask, if the council's consensus is not feeling ready by June, I don't necessarily agree with it. But what we have here really at the bottom line, is a lot of capital projects. I wonder, at one time, the council staff retreat used to be a broader conceptual kind of a retreat. It's kind of morphed into capital projects only. And this essentially will end up being a list of capital projects with priorities, in addition to the zoning concept. I wonder, after we get some zoning concepts in our minds, whether that's a great topic for the council staff retreat. That's a question.
I just want to add one thing. So what I'm thinking is that once this plan goes back to post, then there would be opportunities for the public to weigh in on it. Because I would hate to see something go from post to the council without the public getting to see a final plan and weighing in on it.
May I just interject that post would we be a venue for public comment? In fact, I highly encourage people from the audience to come and speak at post because it's kind of lonely sometimes.
No, I understand that. I understand that, Chuck. But I want more public comment than that. So basically, after post takes the plan and makes their comments, I'd like to see it go back out again to the public. So I'm just encouraging more
Help our
public comment.
help the staff then so in terms of public comment that we've had, this has been, with the exception of the survey and maybe one meeting, in one single event, this is the most that people have been at an event by head count. So my question then to provide guidance would be, what type of venue would you suggest that there be other than official meetings like the Parks and Open Space Trail
Sure.
Commission?
That's a great question.
Or they
So-
can even come, we could have an agenda item on each one of our next two meetings, right? Because we have one on the 28th, which is coming up next week. So we can have that
Yeah.
as an agenda to even go through this report again. Happy to do that. Or I'm happy to walk through it. Or we're happy to walk through it.
Yeah, so the disconnect is that this is not a final plan. This is just a set of ideas. And from what I've heard, they just decided to put amenities in certain locations and take them out of other locations, and it wasn't meant to be a final plan. It was meant to get the council talking. Is that right? And get some input from the council. So the reason why I want more public input on a more final plan, so that people can say, oh, okay, you know, there's going to be the pickleball over here, right? So then the public gets to see the final plan. And that's what I would want. It's just more public input. So I think that's like enough direction to the consultants and to staff that we have more opportunities for public input on the final plan.
That's helpful, but we'll also have I'm assuming,
Mhm.
being in this town for the time, is that if we want to choose after the strategic plan comes out to then decide, all right, we're going to go spend money and put something at Tether Park, that there would be again public comment on that decision to put whatever specific items are.
Yeah, I think that's right. But you know, the master planning process is so important. We've got to let the public weigh in on the final draft and weigh in multiple times. So, you know, that's just something I'd like to see as well.
There is a website. All of the information should be on the website. You can make comments on the website. Peter, have we had a lot of comments come through the website?
Fair number, yeah.
So it's kind of an open comment time that people, no matter whether they're putting their kid to bed or making school lunches or dinner or vacuuming or whatever they're doing, they can take a look at the plans and make the comments on their own time. They don't have to try to make a meeting. So it is tiburonparks.org.
.com.
Sorry. I always type them both in. And all the information from surveys and results are all on the website. So it's a great spot to go to get information.
Yeah, and I really think if you're gonna come up with a suggested plan, it's gonna go to post, there'll be a public meeting there. And then it'll come to us, there'll be another public meeting here. I'm not sure what else we really.
Also, if we did the staff council retreat, it's a public meeting and we could, I mean, you get,
Discussed it there.
yeah, you can get more public feedback there too. I like that idea.
So I think, and that's exactly why I asked the question. But I think the best thing at this point is probably let's let the consultant and staff and the subcommittee, this should be a high priority to talk about at their next meeting to kind of figure out, this is so important, right? And we're at that last, quarter of this and we don't want to fumble at the last moment here. So I think it's really important that we finish strong here and get this done the right way. And I think it's worth the subcommittee having a conversation about what does this final stretch look like and really map it out. And if it means extending it a bit past June, that's fine. I just think it's so important that we do that.
I have a question. When we did the general plan, how many drafts did it take for the general plan?
Yeah, it's a little hard to answer that because there's so many different elements.
So maybe for a single element, how many was there just one draft and then you're done?
I don't remember. Each one was a bit different as you know, some were easy and some were a bit harder. And again, I don't think we're not going to solve this tonight. I just brought it up because when I looked at the timeline, I recognized that it didn't appear to me that this body was going to be ready to say stamp of approval in June. That's all. And
Yeah, I don't think so.
And I just want to make sure that we get it right. And I think the subcommittee talking about it at their next meeting would be very helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I agree. Any further comments?
Yeah, let's just reiterate my comments about the storage building and the public restrooms being gone from the plan.
And I'll reiterate my comments about water access, kayaks, storage buildings. I think it all should be in the mix. If we're going to re-look at some of these things, we should relook at all of them if there's a need for them.
I have another question. Can the subcommittee meet with the consultants at some point in this process to go over draft recommendations or sort of where you are as we get closer to the sort of May, June timeframe?
Yes,
Okay.
we can do that. One thing I just, so that it's clear with the consultants, from what I gathered, with the three different elements of Richardson Bay Linear Park. What I'm understanding here is the placement of these amenities is just visual right now, but you prefer maybe a deck of what can go here and then leaving it to the future plan when we're going out to actually develop that area to figure out from this list of, I think Jack, you had mentioned a list of like 10 or 15 elements that can go in here where they can be placed.
So I think that was my comment.
Was that-
I want to see a list of what people want, right? And then possible areas.
Got it.
And, you know, I'm a little uncomfortable with this whole discussion because, you know, you're going to have to make a decision about what stays in the plan and what doesn't stay in the plan, and we don't have agreement. So I'm not, you know, I think, are we going to vote on each thing? I mean, what is the process for approval?
Well, that's a great question. I like the analogy of the zoning. I think that starting with that idea of zones of active, inactive, however you want to describe it, is a good start. And by doing it that way, you're not eliminating any potential thing. You're just saying these, we're looking at sort of activity level first, and then there's a menu of things. And I can't tell you what the process is going to be for council to approve or disapprove, but you're not ruling anything out by default if you approach it that way.
The zones weren't in that deck.
No, they weren't.
There weren't any zones.
And
But what we heard tonight was
that we want zones.
that maybe that's one way to meet everybody's, comments and needs tonight, which is we don't want to necessarily rule things out or rule things in right now. But maybe the idea is you should agree on.
Like, you mean like themes? Like this is where we do these kinds of activities, and then another areas where we do other activities?
Well, that's the zoning concept, I
Passive
think.
recreation,
the-
active recreation, that kind of thing.
Well, my idea was like, just say 5 years from now, everyone in town is like, you know what, we need to have a mixed martial arts steel cage somewhere in town. This document will help us figure out where it goes. Right? We look and we're like, oh, well, the document clearly says we shouldn't put it right next to Old St. Hilda's Church. Right? Like,
Right, so we've had stuff in the past is like active and passive recreation, right? Is that kind of what you're getting at, is where we kind of re-up? These are areas where we want to have active,
yes.
and this is where we want to have passive, like, I think Mr. Shepherd's comment was the contingent of folks who want to leave everything exactly the way that it is right now. Yeah, we already have some areas where there's active and passive, and south of Knoll, aside from the decaying play structures, it's mostly passive, right?
Yeah,
It's natural
that's
beauty.
what, I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah. Agreed.
No, I think the zoning idea.
and
would
I
really
also-
organize the
There's one
process.
more thing that came up that I'd like to see. I would like to see on all of these things that you've listed, how many people wanted each one. So if you can come up with that, because the original survey had certain things on it. And now there's new things up here that were never on the survey that, how many people want those things? So that maybe when we're doing our decision making, we can come up with weighting, based on the survey, based on public input. How many people wanted, a volleyball court or something else that's listed in the presentation?
I think we got about as much as we're going to get tonight. So
Really, I was going to suggest the survey include a question about a recreation parcel tax, but never mind. That was a joke. Don't write that down. Okay. Is there any further comment? I'm seeing none. Thank you for a vigorous discussion. Thank you for the public for their input. And we move back now to action item 3. Is there a staff report?
as council knows, the town is going to embark on a traffic study that was mentioned by Councilmember Wellner earlier. In fact, the proposals were due today. And I'll let you know, we did receive 3 proposals for the, as a result of the RFP for the traffic study. Typically with RFPs, we set up an interview with this type of, just like we did with the Parks Master Plan consultants, we set up a panel to interview the potential consultants. We're wondering whether council would like to appoint a member of the council for that panel to interview the traffic study consultants and make a recommendation to the full council for who we would go with. It's not a requirement, just throwing it out there for council. We also intend to ask the Post Commission to appoint a member, as it's pedestrian related, and the Post acts as our bicycle pedestrian advisory committee as well.
So I think the council member who generated the brilliant idea for this study might be interested in serving in the RFP.
I am. That would be great.
I don't know if it needs, if everybody agrees, I don't think it needs a vote. I just.
It's public comment first, though. I'm back.
Oh, look who's back, the legal division. Yay.
All right. Before we move forward, we will do good government and ask for public comment. I am seeing none. Bring it back to council. Do you need a motion? Nothing, just a point.
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Wow, the mayor does have some power in a general law city. Okay, I have now gone down to discussion item number 2, Mill Valley Refuse Service franchise agreement. Is there a staff report?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just so council knows, we experienced an internet outage while you were discussing that, and Lee is just getting that computer back up. Thank you. So as most council members know, the town has an exclusive franchise agreement for solid waste collection with Mill Valley Refuse Service, and has had one for decades. The current agreement was approved by council in 2011 with an effective date of July 1st, 2011. The initial term of that agreement was 10 years, and the agreement provided for 2 potential 5-year extensions. One extension runs from 2021 to 2026, and the second extension would run from 2026 to 2031. In 2016, I should back up, the franchise agreement was written that the council needed to make the decision to exercise those 5-year extensions, essentially 5 years in advance. So in 2016, council voted to exercise the first 5-year extension, and that extended the agreement from 2021 to 2026. So as it stands, the current agreement will terminate June 30th, 2026. For the original agreement, council was to make the decision on the second 5-year extension by 2021. At that time, when we brought it to council at that time, council asked us to get more information sort of on the state of the solid waste collection industry, and we engaged with R3 Consulting to do franchise analysis. After receiving the report by R3, council asked staff to work with Mill Valley Refuse to see if we could extend the deadline by which council needed to make that decision to exercise the second 5-year extension. We did work with Mill Valley Refuse. They agreed, and we extended the deadline to June 30th, 2024. Also, subsequent to that decision, we entered into a second amendment to the agreement, which related to implementation of SB 1383, which relates to the composting food disposal. And Mill Valley Refuse, we worked closely with Mill Valley Refuse, and we entered into that second amendment as well. So tonight's item is really is for discussion and really just asking council if there's information they need from us, staff, or Mill Valley Refuse prior to bringing this back to council, probably in May, because I'll just summarize it. By June 30 of this year, 2024, you all need to decide whether you want to extend the current franchise agreement an additional 5 years. If you choose to do that, it would run until June 30th, 2031. If you choose not to extend that exercise the second 5-year extension, the current agreement will terminate on June 30th, 2026. Garth Schultz, who's a principal at R3 Consulting, is available for questions from council as well. He's on Zoom right now, and there are representatives of Mill Valley Refuse here as well. So again, just to summarize, we're just looking for direction from council. We plan to bring this back to you probably in May for an action item to make a decision. And we just want to know if there's additional information you need from staff, Mill Valley Refuse or R3, to ensure that you make an informed decision when that time comes.
So I do have a question. We got a rather extensive report last time, didn't we?
Yes, back in 2021, again, R3 produced a franchise assessment report, which is included in your staff report as, don't remember what exhibit.
No, I
yeah.
looked at it. I
Yeah.
just wanted to
Yeah.
lead up to my real question, which is, we are not at this time asking for another full report, but is there a possibility that the consultant can give us an update and see if anything has changed since the last report he gave us that might affect our decision?
Sure. I guess what I'd recommend is, has Garth been? Yeah. So again, Garth is available, and rather than speak for the consultant myself, perhaps Garth can provide an opinion on what, if anything, aspect of the report may be useful to revisit or update. There you go, Garth. So.
Hi, thank you, Mayor, council members. Garth Schultz, again, president with R3. I did speak about this with the town manager in advance of him bringing this item to you this evening. And, to summarize, in my opinion, the conditions are, not substantially different than when you considered them 3 years ago. There are some, changes in the overall solid waste marketplace that I think are certainly worth considering for the council and for haulers that would be interested in doing solid waste collection service work in the town and everywhere in the state for that matter. But I don't know that those conditions or changes in conditions really change the overall set of findings and conclusions. The solid waste collection marketplace remains dynamic in the sense that there are, continued increases in regulation, whether those are around waste collection and diversion or emissions related to collection trucks and CARB's new zero emission vehicle advanced clean fleet mandate that will start to roll out in the coming decade, or the impacts of inflation, whether those be on the cost of collection vehicles, the wages and benefits for what is largely a labor intensive process, and things like fuel and other supplies and commodities. I think we've seen both throughout the state and regionally throughout the Bay Area competitive procurements that yield interest, but not necessarily say lower rates than are currently enjoyed by cities and towns and communities. Typically, and this is one of the findings from the report from 3 years ago, typically, rates that increase, and that's also true in a negotiated position, although sometimes you have, as an agency, somewhat better control over levers or pressure points in a negotiation position than you do in a competitive procurement place. So, on the whole, the overall rate comparison, we have not updated that, but I can say it's, again, looks largely similar to what it did 3 years ago. There haven't been major shifts. The competitive marketplace for hauling services in Marin County hasn't shifted from what it was 3 years ago. And I think that there's no sure bet that a competitive RFP would yield a substantial change or reduction in the cost of service. And that is, something we reflected to the town 3 years ago as well. So that's, I think, a brief update just off the cuff without having, gone into the details of the specifics of rates and services again, but having been monitoring it broadly throughout the rest of Marin County and the Bay Area for the last 3 years. Again, conditions remain largely similar, though slightly evolved from where they were 3 years ago.
Thank you. Does that conclude the staff report? Are we in-
Yes, unless there are other, if there, we're certainly open to questions. And I know the folks from Mill Valley Refuse, I think would like to speak.
I
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, did you want to go?
I just have some comments. What I was gonna say is that I just, I mean, the reason for requesting the extension was so that we could look at current information before we decided. And so I feel a little uncomfortable having a 3-year-old report to look at. And I'm wondering if there's a possibility of having an updated report provided to provide us with current information.
When you say current information, I'm assuming you're talking about rates, of course.
Well, what I'm talking about is in order for us to decide whether to continue or not, I understand what's being said, that there's no guarantee what happens with an RFP, right? So you don't know the outcome. But what I think would be useful for us is to have a comparison of what our residents are paying compared to other residents in Marin, so that we understand if we feel like we're getting a fair deal or not.
Let me add to that, not only what they're paying, but what they're getting.
Yeah, exactly.
What gets recycled, where they take their material to recycle, and whether there are better programs of recycling that are cost effective for our customers, for ours.
I just feel like if we're being asked to decide whether or not to renew a contract, we should really understand what the alternatives are.
Garth, I'd happy to work with you and come up. I mean, what I'm hearing is like not a wholesale redo the report, but sort of go through the report, update data that's 3 years old, and provide it to council when we come back. Is that?
I think that's exactly right.
So are the Mill Valley Refuse people going to?
I actually have a question. for
Oh,
staff.
go ahead.
Okay. I was wondering if we've received complaints or.
I would say that the short answer is, this is a service that touches every single one of our residents, and it doesn't surprise me at all that we occasionally receive complaints. But I have to say, I could probably count on one hand this year of how many complaints we received. And I will reiterate that from a staff perspective, Mill Valley Refuse has been a very, very solid partner for us. And when we do receive complaints, they've been very responsive in
Yes.
resolving them to the extent that they're able to. So.
Yeah, I just should comment that the biggest complaint I've seen is on Nextdoor, and what they're complaining about is that passersby put their dog poop bags in.
It's in their
How much you
compost
can do
bins.
about
Yeah.
that?
Any further questions or comments? I'm seeing none.
I think they want to.
I know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have any. I think it's time for public comment. So.
Public comment, please. That's you.
All right. Hello, esteemed council. My name is Gene Del Zopa. I'm CEO of Mill Valley Refuse Service. We are a family-owned operation. We've been in business for 118 years. I'm a third-generation Italian-American that owns a solid waste business. So is Alex. I wanted to share with the council that I really appreciate your consideration in regards to the extension. The company's position is that we are going to be open in regards to requests for information to assist you and guide you. In terms of regulatory updates that have been ongoing, Advanced Clean Fleets is probably the most comprehensive zero emission vehicle regulation that will impact the solid waste industry in terms of us providing zero emission vehicles. What that means is we are going to be transitioning to zero emission vehicles through a milestone approach, meaning that we will get electric vehicles by 2027 and by 2029. The biggest challenges currently for the solid waste industry is finding the infrastructure needed in order to support the electricity. What is great about this industry is that we understand our role in committing to the state's climate change initiatives, and we will find alternative sources of funding through grants and also explore opportunities as well. The reason I say explore opportunities is I'm very bullish on hydrogen as a potential vehicle for zero emission vehicles. But the technology isn't there yet. Currently, our company is very active with the Resource Recovery Coalition of California. It has been a great group of independent haulers and publicly traded companies and privately held. What's good about this work is that we really spend a lot of time advocating for legislation needs in the state when it comes to our organic waste management, SB 54, which involves plastic, preventing plastic pollution with product packaging, as well as advanced clean fleets. So that's my comment. Thank you all so much for my time. I will say what's not on the agenda is Millville Refuse Service sponsoring a pickleball team, but it seems like that might be something we look into. Yeah. Yeah.
I think you would be the
Yeah.
most popular hauler in the world if you did that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, of course, Alice.
Question. Of course, mostly what people talk about, besides whether their cans have been picked up or besmirched with dog poop, is what happens when recyclables are picked up. It's my understanding that Mill Valley Refuse takes their recyclables to Marin Sanitary, which has a wonderful program. I wonder if you just say a word or two about that.
Yeah, so part of our recycling strategy is we participate in the dual stream recycling program. With that said, is we separate cardboard and paper, as well as we do cardboard and paper 1 week, and then the next week we do bottles and cans and plastic. So we do that to minimize contamination when we do provide the recyclable materials to Marine Resource Recovery Center. What's good about Marine Resource Recovery Center is it gives us good insights on what are we seeing in terms of our streams, and we have to report a diversion report through Calorie Cycle. And we work closely as well in terms of labeling of what is recyclable, what is considered compostable, and what is considered trash. We're required to do that with SB 1383 when it comes to container labeling. In addition, we also we're very fortunate to be in the County of Marin to have access to a great material recovery facility. It's not the same in certain other jurisdictions and areas of California, so it is definitely a privilege that we're very grateful for.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the council? No, so where are we? We're going to get an updated
Excuse me,
report.
Madam Mayor, before we move on, we have a member of the public online
Okay.
recognizing Beth. Beth, are you there? You have your hand raised. I think it was an accident. She's just dropped off.
The hand has now dropped, so we do not have a public comment online.
All right. Does she realize, can she just phone in? Is that still a possibility, by the way? No, it is not. Oh,
It is still a possibility, but she's dropped off. I think it was a mistake.
all right. I'm sensing that there's a comment here to my left.
Yeah, there is. I just wanted to thank you for that presentation, and I'm super excited that you're moving to the zero emission vehicles. I think it's fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, and looking at
It-
hydrogen, which sometime will be plausible.
And it will help Tiburon a lot with our climate action plan. So thank
Yeah,
you. And
I'm-
reducing GHG.
It's really amazing how fast the technology is advancing, and we're fully committed to this, and the most challenging aspects is going to be the infrastructure needed, but I'm very hopeful and optimistic that we can cross that hurdle.
And it's my understanding with respect to hydrogen that there are greener ways of producing it and more polluting ways, and I'm sure, given your history, you will stay on top of that.
I will say with hydrogen, one of the tricky things is, right now, currently it is a higher dollar value amount than diesel. And there's also a lot of infrastructure needed, but I know that the EPA is also currently looking into it. In terms of the processes of hydrogen, hydrolysis is very popular, but that requires a lot of electricity. So there's going to be, I am very, optimistic when it comes to renewable energy sources.
Thank you. Are there any further comments from the council? Have we retrieved anyone from the public?
Beth has returned. We will try to recognize Beth.
Hello, sorry, I had issues with the mute. Thanks for your patience. Yeah, my name is Beth Mix. I was in person earlier. Yeah, I think to echo the points of when you're reevaluating the wonderful service that they offer, I think as a Tiburon resident, prices are really important. A lot of us were caught off guard with the 80% increase of like the water bills, and then PG&E has also gone up. So I do think the price comparison is important. I have actually been a big fan of the Mill Valley Refuse Service from a customer service standpoint. They've been fantastic. And then from a competitive standpoint, I did want to call out that there are some new companies that do recycle junk removal that I have reached out to when I've surpassed my junk pickup or feel ethically responsible to try to like repurpose some of my junk. So that might be just be something to think about incorporating as well. But from a customer service standpoint, I think my whole neighborhood's been happy with it. Just I was listening in about price because a bunch of this stuff kind of caught me off guard recently, and I know there's been conversations on Nextdoor about it as well, specifically around like water and PG&E. And so I feel like this is relatable as it's another bill.
Thank you, Beth. Any further public comment?
Seeing none.
And so does staff have the direction they need?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Are there any other comments from the council? If not, are there council reports? Town manager report?
No, Madam Mayor.
Let's adjourn now to closed session. All right, I would like to call the meeting to order again after closed session. Is there anything to report out of closed session?
Yes, Mayor, the council met on 2 items, and on the second item, initiation of litigation, authorized me on a vote of 5-0 to bring a lawsuit, and the identity of the lawsuit will be revealed, and it's a public record once we file the lawsuit. And with that, that concludes my report.
Thank you for the report. We are adjourned.
Thank you.